I swear to God, I will hold you my own.
Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to tonight's broadcast of the OPL. Tonight we have a special match on between Regicide and Abyss to decide who will stay in the OPL and who will head into the promo and relegation tournament. I'm Matthew Stewart, joining me is Jimmy Preacher Fu. How are you doing today, buddy?
Hey, not too bad. I get to join you on this cast between Regicide and Abyss. I followed both of these two through from the OCS all the way into the OPL, so I've got pretty much as much knowledge as you need.
Which is fantastic. And on top of that, you know, Regicide, as you mentioned, played last split in the OCS, and Abyss have a team in the OCS at the moment as well. They're going through the promotion tournament.
Yeah, that one looks pretty strong as well. But even before that, when Abyss was actually branded as Abyss Red, I believe the team who managed to make it through to the OPL, they still look strong altogether.
They certainly do, and this will be a really good match because historically in the OPL, Regicide taking on Abyss has been a big grudge match. The first week of the OPL, Abyss won it, and the last week, which was last weekend, they lost 2-0, and it was a crushing defeat as well.
Yeah, it kind of looked a bit strong coming out from Regicide here. They pretty much just cheesed their way through to victory. I would say that between the Riven and the Rammus, there was a whole lot of Gouda going on, and I was just a huge fan of watching it.
I mean, we already heard from their coach himself, Vicarious, the fact that they won so convincingly in game one. He was like, you know what, since they won so convincingly, let's give them a solo queue team competition to play with their comfort champions, and they did really well doing that, surprisingly. I mean, all the comfort picks really worked in their favor.
Yeah, and I actually expect to see that come out today. Maybe not in the second game. I would go so far as to say the first game, simply because they dominated so hard last time. Why not just say, let's carry on that fervor from the very last time that we met, and just picked up the cheese from the get-go.
I was about to say, let's go find out if that's going to happen as we headed into Champion Select, but unfortunately it seems like we've dropped out of Champion Select for a brief second. We're going to go straight back into it. It's going to be Regicide taking on Abyss for the first match of this best-of-3 series. We should expect some target bans thrown towards Regicide way after last weekend. If not, I think they're going to have a field day with what they get to pick here today.
Yeah, it kind of looks like Abyss must be struggling coming into this one because they have to decide, do we ban the champions that are just too strong, especially seeing as Regicide have first pick on blue side, or do we go for the targeted bans like, for instance, the Riven, like even maybe the Rammus that caused a whole lot of pain? Doesn't even matter if he's about 30 CS down by 10 minutes time. If he manages to rotate his way around the map, he is a CC bot and he does his job properly.
And Yele is the Rammus one trick on the Regicide squad. We have already seen him pull it out before last weekend, and it's not going to be Fade that's playing today. Yele's still going to be stepping in for the Regicide team, so we'll have to see if that pocket pick is available for them. But Abyss have not banned out a single one of those signature champions. Instead, they've gone for Zaya, Braum, as well as LeBlanc, and we have Gragas, Maokai, and Callista banned out by Regicide.
Yeah, that's very interesting. It gives Regicide a whole lot of leeway in terms of what they want to pick. They don't necessarily have to go for something extremely strong right now, although they could potentially go for something that can absolutely dominate the jungle. We have seen that come out of the champion pool of Yele. I believe that Yele, in comparisons to Fade, look a little bit weaker, but it's understandable considering that Fade has to step out due to sickness, due to all of those issues. So he's still been performing very well in his own right. It just does need to fall back to more the tank sort of junglers.
I mean, we've seen both Yele as well as Fade be heavily banned out by multiple teams. I believe this is one of the first times Regicide have played in the OPL and not received a single jungle ban. Sejuani was one of his signature champions. In fact, it was one of the champions Regicide picked up to do well against the Chiefs early game in the OPL, so hopefully we'll be able to see the same performance from here today. But for the side of Abyss, they pick up Jarvan as well as Tristana as their first two picks.
Yeah, I am really leaning towards... Hello there. I'm really leaning towards that Jarvan going towards Pabu as opposed to Seb, because I actually do believe that Pabu has done a lot of good work on this Jarvan. He has shown that he's extremely proficient on it. But rather than that, I actually think that Seb's going to pick up something like, for instance, the Elise. We saw it a lot the last time that these two teams faced, and actually you have to take a look at that champion and say it can actually just completely take away the Sejuani's early game potential and get his lanes rolling.
Certainly can, and it's one of Seb's signature picks and very heavily picked and banned in the OPL. In fact, it's almost entirely taken away from the Direwolves. They don't want Schönfire to get his hands in that champion, but it's not picked up in the first draft phase here, as Renekton as well as Alistar picked up for Regicide. Two very comfort picks for Regicide at the moment. Alistar being Chen-Chen's signature one-trick pony champion, and ZZZ is known to go into matchups like the one he's up against today into the Nah and do well on the Renekton pick.
Yeah, most certainly. We have to see how ZZZ performs, because that was one of the matchups that I really wanted to take a look at once we actually get into game. I think that ZZZ has had one of the best runs in terms of top laners, despite the fact that his team hasn't been performing as well as they were hoping to do so. However, he was never the person who was letting them down. I think he's always had that solid performance in the 1v1, especially especially against Pabu, when you compare their performances lane for lane, pound for pound, you have to say that it goes over to ZZZ. But one of the things that Regicide have the ability to do now is they can ban out the support pool going in from AE because nothing's been picked up yet.
First off, they're going to ban out Cassiopeia towards Luch, taking away his mid lane champions. 2 bans coming out from Abyss already. Varus targeted towards Kedu, as well as one of Steelman's signature champions of the Vladimir is taken away.
That's kind of strange to see the Cassiopeia ban come out, because while Cassiopeia is a very strong champion for Luch, the downside of that is Luch traditionally doesn't do too much in the early game. He likes to farm up and get to that late game carry position. He plays really passively, and this isn't really the meta to do so, because we see the roaming mid laners, like for instance the Corki, the Talia, even a TF, if those two are banned off as well, but unfortunately it's not going to come out here. It's not really in Luch's champion pool, and a whole lot of supports go the way of AE.
Yeah, well, let's see what they do decide to pick up for Luch later on. We'd expect it to be their final pick in the draft phase. Janna was the last ban from Regicide, targeting Rosie here, but he still has a lot of champions to pick from. Galio is going to be locked in for Abyss here. That could still be Luch in the mid lane or Flex for Rosie as a support. He is known to play some unorthodox champions in the bottom lane.
Of course, pulling out the old Bard and also the Zac, I believe, in the bottom lane. So pretty much this guy, he doesn't just have a champion pool, he has an absolute champion ocean. We have absolutely no idea where that Galio is going, although if meta dictates anything, you kind of have to assume that it goes towards the mid lane. I think that this is a good step for Luch. I think that this is branching out more towards the supportive type champions in the mid lane as opposed to the hard carries, because when we saw him perform in the OPL, it's not so much that he can't make it to the late game, it's when he does, his champion pulls, his champion picks don't really fit into the whole context of the team. He has those wave clears, but he doesn't go forward in the team fights.
We'll have to see if he's able to do just that, because Luch, coming back onto Abyss, we thought that that was going to be what propels them to be a top 4 team in the OPL. However, he has not had the best season so far. He's looked like one of the weakest mid laners out of the top 5 teams at the moment. The final picks coming from Regicide are going to be Ashe for Kedu, as well as Suman's Kassadin, which he picked up a pentakill on last weekend.
Yeah, that pentakill was absolutely amazing to see. I was really happy to see him finally come out of his shell and perform well in the context of the mid lane. But after all is said and done, I still think that that was a little bit rare.
And the final pick is for Luch. Abyss definitely have a swimming pool of champions that they've dove into, as Galio will be played as a support pick for Rosie here today. And a dominant mid lane Lucian, which was very popular in the telecom wars over in the LCK, has become popular among the top teams in the OPL, has now been picked up by Abyss.
Not only that, but it's also a counter pick into the Kassadin. Does very well into him in the early game, because pretty much the magic resistance is absolutely nothing for him when you compare him to a Lucian.
And only blocked the W.
Of course. I also really do like the fact that Luch has moved away from the late game, because Lucian does very well in the early to mid. You get the Blade of the Ruined King, you get the Black Cleaver, you're pretty much ready to go on the entire map. And that really signifies that this guy is coming out of his shell. He's willing to expand not only his champion pool, but also his playstyle.
He certainly is. Very curious to see Luch play this aggressive champion in the mid lane. He's going to be pairing up, teaming up with Raid, so to speak, who's on the Tristana. Raid has had a phenomenal split. A couple of times, almost single-handedly taking down some of the top teams in the OPL, like the Chiefs when he's picked up Jin, one of his pocket picks. But it took him a lot of time to kind of synergize with Rosie, so to speak. And he's still playing unorthodox picks like Galio.
Yeah, exactly. Because here's the actual difference in between the bot laners. Rosie is somebody who really wants to go forward, wants to make a whole lot of playmaking ability, has a lot of playmaking ability when it comes to the 2v2. However, Raid is not known for that. He's known as the person who plays really passively and waits for the team fights where he just pops off. He's on a Tristana. We're talking about resets with his rocket jump over and over again. This is not somebody who necessarily wants to play for the early game, but because the Tristana's amazing level 2, he most certainly has the ability to.
I'll have to see if they're going to be able to do just that. They're up against an Ashe Alistar lane. One that we haven't seen for quite some time.
Yeah, I believe that this is a hark back to mid-season, pretty much, when Ashe and Alistar were both very strong. I believe that Championship Ashe is coming out because that was to commemorate the amazing work that Ashe has been able to do. She still does pretty much all the things that you expect her to do. You know, you pretty much just lock people down with the ultimate and you're good to go. And of course the Alistar, the one-trick special. You go into solo queue, you're pretty much expected to see the Alistar on the side of Chen Chuan. So all in all, this is a very coherent team composition in terms of comfort, because when you think about Regicide, they performed well in the first half of this year because they were playing to that meta. Now that they're in the OPL, they haven't had the breadth to really expand and to go full force. So they're reverting back to what they know and what they love.
Which is strange because Vicarious, the coach of Regicide, was very vocal when he said that Kedu is stepping in as their AD carry because he's an aggressive AD carry and pairs up with Chen Chuan very well. But this lane matchup, Ash, not really the most aggressive champion you'd expect.
Yeah, you're right. She's not the most aggressive. However, the one upside of Ashe is the fact that she can really be unlocked from the very first item. Blade the Ruined King compared with a jungle coming down to really take down the first turret early on just unlocks Ashe everywhere on the map because you can just free fire your ultimates on any part of the lane. The Ashe isn't so much for the early laning phase, it's to make sure that they have a very good one, they have a very early shove at level 1 with the volley as well, and also just to make sure that they can bust down the turret before anything really happens.
Especially with League of Ardent Sensor being very popular at the moment.
Course.
But curious to see if Alistar or Galio do pick it up. They do have ways to proc it, especially with Stoneborn Pack, but not many ways to proc it on
Look,
the
if you want to go down this rabbit hole, it is possible. It's not a terrible item in the sense that Alistar also has an ultimate that reduces damage, so you don't really need to build damage items per se, but starting coin on Alistar always feels a little bit weird in comparison to Relic Shield.
We'll have to see Galio as one of those champions that is very rarely played as a support, but when they do, they try to pick up the Relic Shield to counter some of the early game strengths that other supports have.
Well, I'm actually really curious to see this one because while we have seen a little bit of Galio in the support lane, we haven't really seen him recently. And when I talk about recently, I'm also talking about the coin changes. So I want to see if he's adapted towards the coin, which has been nerfed a little bit on 7.16, but is still very good in its own right. It provides a whole lot of what he's lacking, especially in terms of the mana back that you get on the mana coins. It's something that really holds up his laning phase, so that he can go more aggro to give room for his ADC to get farm. It's one of those things that we just need to wait and see.
One thing that these melee supports can't do too well, though, like the Janos or the Lulus in the current meta, is they can't run their gold generation routes. No. Normally we see them run, you know, yellow gold generation, Quint gold generation, giving them about 5.3 total gold per 5.
Of course.
Which stacks up nicely with the coin. But being Alistar as well as Galio, you can't afford to forgo those resistance stats, so to speak.
No, yeah, it's a little bit tough because it's sort of the Mexican standoff where both of them look at each other and say, do we really want to go gold? Well, maybe I won't into you just in case, and it's going to be a really tough situation for both of them, but the fact that neither of them will go for it, if I assume that neither of them do, it pretty much signifies that they're both going to reach their first item at roughly the same time, which is not too bad because in the whole context of the game, you might be a little bit slower, but in terms of the other support, you're pretty much at the same pace.
Certainly would be, but we'll have to see how this game pans out in the bottom lane. But also in the jungle, we saw Yele. He's going to be picking up Sejuani heading into this match. He's up against Seb, who's gone for the Jarvan pick. It's not really a Seb champion. He's more used to the Elise, to the Zax, which were two of his comfort picks in the OPL, but could be a pick away from ZZZ as we head on to Summoner's Rift for the first match between Abyss taking on Regicide.
Yeah, most certainly. It was also a flex pick between both Pabu and Seb. It does actually go towards Seb in the end. I'm not too fussy about this one because when you think about his previous performances and his champion pool in the Elise, I wasn't a huge fan of it. And I wasn't a huge fan because while Elise has a lot of potential in the early game, I personally don't believe that Seb had the ability to really unlock that potential. He wasn't really the big proponent in getting his lanes ahead, and he just fell off by the mid-game mark. Now that he's on somebody like a Jarvan, who can do very well in the late game with the Cataclysm and also the Galio ultimate wombo combo, I think that this really does suit him a whole lot better.
Well, we're going to have 2 Targons picked up by the supports as well, so maybe, especially with Courage Colossus picked up by both of them as well, we're probably not going to see League of Ardent Censor in this match, which is a bit sad.
And it's also a bit strange, because when you think about Abyss Esports bot lane, you have 2 ADCs, you have a Tristana who you're always going to be next to, you will have a Lucian who you'll be next to for the good portion of team fights, because Lucian's one of those champions who jumps in, so if you ever get a heal off from your passive, then you're always going to be healing him. It's a bit strange to see that they don't go for the Ardent Sensor build. Of course it's a bit troll because we're talking about melee supports, but you know, Alistar, his ultimate can do good work.
There are strange things that happen in the OPL. We've seen a Bard Ardent Sensor picked up already, but let's see how this game pans out. No Ardent Sensor, no barrier on AD carry, it's just a very standard bottom lane duo. And nothing too exciting second place so far at level 1. We'll see Yele start as red buff, Jarvan will do the exact same thing, and they'll swap sides of the map.
Yeah, so we'll have to focus on these 2 junglers, especially in their early game potential, especially Seb, because he is the person who needs to step up for his team. But speaking of stepping up for Abyss Esports, they came in to this split with a whole lot of expectations. First split, not so much because you get a freebie. You didn't have Pabu in the top lane because he did the grand exchange with Pac-Man between them and Trident Esports. And also in the mid lane, Luch unfortunately was not eligible to play. So Abyss Esports had sort of like a B roster running for the first half of this year. In the second half, they came in rolling because they had Pabu, they had Luch, the two young prodigies who were meant to take over the OPL. It was just really unfortunate to see that they didn't hit their mark.
Especially with Rosie joining the squad. He was the IWCA representative for Oceania in the support role, and it was a big step up from Kuden in the bottom lane, but Abyss have not been able to capitalize on that, finishing third last on the OPL ladder. Very curious to see how they're going to do against Regicide in this match. We've already mentioned last weekend they dropped 2-0 in very decisive games that went in Regicide's favor. So they definitely would have to step up in this match.
Yeah, it was really decisive. However, you have to attribute that decisiveness to a lot of cheesy picks that came out from Regicide. Now in this game, very standard, very comfortable picks. You can't say that as much. However, the one advantage that they have, that they always had, is Suman's Cassidy, who has been performing big. And another thing that you got to take a look at is the fact that Yele's stepping up for his team. Not only is he trying to make the early game plays, but when he knows that there are no lanes that he can really instigate and get ahead, he goes into enemy jungle and he counter jungles. Especially
the last 2 weeks for Abyss, they've lost their coach. He was not beside them in their previous Week 8 and Week 9 matches in the OPL, whereas Regicide's coach has been highly spoken of by Spawn and a few other coaches as well, saying that he's a very eloquent man when he speaks and sets Regicide up for success most of the time. But I know one matchup you really want to look into is top side of the map. ZZZ taking on Pabu. Big thing about this is ZZZ is one of the few players who says, you know what, if you're going to pick Nah, I'll still pick Renekton anyway. Of course, this time around, Abyss did get that counter pick, so to speak. But he's done so well in this matchup, and he's still doing fine at the moment.
Yeah, he has a lot of comfort on this Renekton. He pretty much doesn't believe in the counter pick of the Gnar into it. He still believes that if you pick this early game bully, you're going to bully early game. And he does it in such good fashion, because when you take a look at him lane against Pabu from last weekend, like we keep on yarning back to, pretty much what you see is that Pabu got more or less bullied out by any single champion matchup. And that's got to be really demoralizing coming into this, because it's a story of old versus new, and as far as you can see, you don't even need to teach an old dog new tricks. If you just put him on a Renekton, he'll always do well.
You don't see that from the top lane matchup. They're quite even in CS at the moment. ZZZ is letting it push back towards his turret, and Pabu's not been able to harass him out at all. Still sitting on next to full health, as well as the potion in his back pocket. But this early game has been very quiet, and even in the mid lane, where Luch is meant to be winning quite handedly, it's still been okay for Suman so far.
Yeah, it's a little bit right. I believe that he's going to be around 10 CS down while both of these waves are cleared for both these two mid laners. So the advantage that we thought was going to come out for the Lucian is very apparent in the mid lane. However, Cassin has never really been known for laning phase. And more importantly, Cassin has never been known for doing anything before he gets level 6, before he gets his Rift Walk. We'll have to watch him specifically now, because while he isn't 6, he is moving to match his team.
They do get some good damage onto Seb, who is trying to invade towards Yele's jungle. Rosie joins the task as well, trying to steal some of these chickens. Not going to be able to get any for his troubles, but Seb still sticks around, and Yele wants to try and turn this one. Chern's close by as well, flashes in, both of them jump on top of the Java, and he's going to get taken down low, flags out, flashes away, picks up first blood, but that goes to Rosie. Silma will get one in return, but the culling to the face comes out from Luch. He gets one back for Abyss, 2-1 in Abyss's favor.
And you got to imagine that Abyss was planning this from the get-go. The hard invade that came out from Seb to go into the side of Regicide's jungle, because he knew that he had so much support coming in, both in the form of Rosie and also in the form of Luch. He goes aggro, but in the top lane, speaking of aggro.
ZZZ jumping straight on top of Pabu's face, still has flash available. Pabu's used his, jumps on top of him, uses the full rage for the stun. Pabu's in trouble. One more Q is enough, and ZZZ gets a solo kill onto Pabu.
That's what we were talking about, Fish. Pretty much in the top lane, but in bottom, there's more.
Kedu's going to get torn up by Rosie. Ray does get some good damage onto Chen Shrem, but decides not to jump aggressively forward. Good trade for Abyss.
Yeah, that was just such good work from ZZZ. There was no interference from any part of the map. You have to give it very clean. He just outplayed Pabu. He knew Pabu's timings, and he just went straight forward. As soon as Pabu fell out of Mega into Mini Gnar, he knew for certain that there was no hop. He just flashed right on top of him, and there was no ultimate in response.
And although the gold is going in Abyss's favor, thanks to the first spot as well as the big CS discrepancy in the mid lane, 59 to 37. Regicide should be pretty happy with that solo kill on the top side of the map. Yele is now wrapping around in the bottom lane, trying to see if he can get a gank off.
Though.
Yep, standing straight on top of a ward placed down in the river.
And that's one of the advantages of Abyss Esports, because pretty much when they roamed up for that fight in the top side of Regicide's jungle, they also put down a lot of wards to retreat on. And you got to give props to them that every single time they do this, their vision game is extremely strong. They place wards down as soon as they're retreating. They're placing tactical wards that spot out where Yele's going. And that advantage actually nets them a blue. It's completely stolen away.
Luch is going to steal blue buff away from the Castellan. He's already a level up, as well as 30 CS ahead of Sealman. And look at Sealman's item build. He's gone for Dorans, it's a Dark Seal with a refillable pot, and 3 cloth armors. That's how afraid he is of this Lucian mid.
Yeah, eventually that's going to be able to build into something. Fish, I believe that one of them is going into Zhonya's, the other 2, you have as good a guess as mine.
I mean, you can throw 2 into the Seeker's Arm Guard and maybe 1 into Ninja Tabby, but who knows? Sealman just looking to survive early game at the moment, it seems.
Of course, yeah. He's just trying to pick up the armor simply so that he can deal with Luch's early game, but at the current moment, he's already a level 7 caster. He has Rift Walk. He can actually take Lucian not too terribly. Of course, the matchup still goes towards Lucian, but it just goes a whole lot better for Caster once he gets his ulti.
But without blue buff, it's going to be a bit difficult for Sealman to jump straight on top of Luch. You can see Luch is still winning these trades, but it's not going as well as he would have expected from earlier. ZZZ looking to try and collapse onto Pabu again. Pops the dominance very early, but Pabu is able to hop out of danger.
And that was one thing that we really need to highlight from Regicide. Their communication in the early game is not as stellar as what we would expect of them. And that's because a whole lot of the highlight reels that we see from Regicide come from the mid to late game synergy. In the early game, it's pretty much just Yele roaming around the map, trying to make plays in the individual lanes. However, you could see that when he came into the top side, as we actually see some fighting in the mid lane.
Yeah, they try to collapse on towards Luch. No summoners available for him, and Sealman takes his blue buff back as he takes down Luch.
Not too sure what Luch was doing there, pushing up a little bit too far. He didn't have any wards in either of his 2 side brushes, and he was still trying to contest for the farm, not pushing up towards his turret. That was a real question mark coming out from this guy, and this is one of the downsides of transitioning from late game to early game. You got to know when you can apply your pressure, because when you apply a little bit too much, everybody else collapses on top of you, and you got no vision to survive.
And that's definitely going to put Sealman back close to Luch in terms of gold, if not close to even. In fact, the gold across the board is dead even between Regicide as well as Abyss. And if you were to take a look at this match, say halfway through the OPL, a lot of people would say this would be strictly Abyss favored, but Abyss unfortunately have not been able to perform well in this split of the OPL.
Yeah, and it's a little bit too unfortunate because when you take a look at the rest of the split, Regicide came up so strong. But yeah, when you're talking about the early part, especially the bit when Abyss actually managed to win off Regicide, despite the fact that Regicide took a map with no bans at all, you would have actually expected that Abyss might have done better. Unfortunately, things just didn't go their favor as Seb is trying to come into the bot lane. I don't think he can do too much because the bottom brush is watered.
Let's see what he can do. Sitting on top of a control ward for now. Rosie steps into the second brush. You'd have to point out that this bottom lane is still very even at this point in time.
Kedu all summoners available?
Yep. All summoners are available for both bottom lane duos. Kedu and Chen Shren are about 100 gold behind Raid and Rosie respectively. Jungle is dead even between Yeleo and Seb to kick things off. This is a big bait coming out from Raid. Seb will now jump in, but he flashes for this one. Rosie gets on top of Chenshin, but that's an Alistar with ultimate available, and they turn straight back on top of Raid. Rosie's going to get the ultimate from the Galio. A teleport comes down as well from ZZZ. Yele coming in for the gang. Flag and drag out from Seb. There is no flash for this Galio, and they pile on in. It's going to be an easy pickup and a good counter gank from Regicide.
And Fish, this was what Regicide were setting up for. Through process of elimination, they determined that there was no other place that Seb could have possibly been, simply because mid lane was pushing up with absolutely no result. Top lane was losing by itself naturally. Of course he was trying to make a play bottom side. They just naturally assumed that he was there, and they brought 2 additional members along.
Oh, that was the teleport used by Castellan as well. So ZZ now going to try and get some access towards Pabu. Not going mega anytime soon. Flashes on him to get the stun. Takes Pabu very low. Slows him down with the boomerang, and he's going to get taken out again. Another solo kill for ZZZ in the top lane.
That's absolutely ridiculous. And you could even see that Luch was moving up to try and counter that 1v1. However, because Pabu dropped down into Minina, funnily enough, once again, no ultimate once again, he used his flash, but there was a flash on the other side, and ZZZ just completely followed him and completely wrecked him. So now, when we talk about ZZZ, in the whole context of the OPL, you have to say he's up there in terms of the top laners that we do have. He's one of those top laners who doesn't just go aggressive early on, he does it in such a smart way that he knows for certain that he can get something when he goes aggressive.
Yep, some people have questioned his decision-making in the top lane, but he's definitely one of the strongest mechanical players.
I mean, he is feast or famine. Sometimes he just goes in and dies 1v1 for no reason.
But he's a very good player and has done well for Regicide. He's been the backbone of the team for most of the split. But going back into that bottom lane play from Abyss, Rosie flashing forward to get a taunt off to on an Alistar with Courage of Colossus, ultimate available, and flash up as well.
Yep.
They just turn around straight on towards Raid. It was an easy reversal coming out from Regicide and a curious play from Seb.
Yeah, not too sure, because Seb even went in with the flag drag as well, but knocking up an Alistar while the Ashe was already out to safety, Kedu didn't even need to use his flash. He still had that if there was a cataclysm of some sort to further the engage. So all in all, Abyss were really trying to push their advantage. They're trying to do so in the mid lane.
This is a good news stories for Abyss though, as they are able to take down the mid lane outer turret quickly. They try to turn for a fight though. Arrow comes through, locks down the Galio again, and ZZZ is in the back line, stunned up by Parbo, who is mega for this fight. They took Luch down very low. He was forced to use his flash to get away, but Abyss do get the first turret of the match, bringing the goal back to even.
So this is the one advantage that Abyss have over Regicide. While you can't necessarily say that their individual mechanics are better than the side of Regicide, their team play is a whole lot better. I was already talking about the warding that they did when they invaded and also when they retreated back to their side of the map, and that warding has eventually allowed them to actually rotate to the mid lane so much faster than Regicide. They pretty much caught Suman off by surprise, a Cassidy very early on without much AP, only a blasting one, can't really clear waves, and the whole wave crashes to what culminates into a Tristana taking a turret.
We have to try and see if Abyss can use the gold they got from that turret to stop the bleeding being caused by Regicide so far. But already 500 gold has been picked up in Regicide's favor since the turret fell down, just through natural advantages. You can see the items being picked up by most of these teams.
Oh no, that is really
Stops
punishing.
the back.
That is so punishing because the bot side of Abyss have actually already rotated to the top side. Now Kedu needs to do a full back before he can even start moving towards the top side. Tristana's going to get so much chip off of this now.
Let's see if it's going to be enough to get this turret low. Yele as well as Chen Shen are moving their way up to the top lane. ZZZ is more than happy to go aggressive against Pabu. Stuns him up. Suman joins the fight as well, and Na has already been used by Pabu. He knows that his time has come, and he's going to fall to this combo. Regicide get another kill onto the Renekton.
Yeah, I think that's just heartbreaking at this moment, Fish, whenever a 1v1 play happens, because at the current moment, now he knows that he doesn't have enough damage because he's versing a Frozen Mallet Na, which gives a whole lot of HP. He calls Suman down, but there's a fight topside.
Regicide are calling for this fight. Rift Herald has been taken down. Yele takes a lot of damage. Chen Shen jumps into the backlines. Good lockdown on Luch. He's going to go down really quickly. He has to be careful. Ignite is ticking. Chen Shen gets that kill. They flash onto Kedu, who jumps away into the mid lane river. He will be able to get out of this one. Seb can't drag out. Not enough mana to collapse on towards the Ashe. Suman goes on a killing spree. The rest of Abyss are falling one by one. Yele may die here. It's a double kill picked up by Suman. Seb is still cancelling auto attacks. Finally gets that kill, but a big pickup comes out from Regicide.
And you got to assume that that was amazing shot calling coming out from Regicide, because pretty much they knew that if Suman was the last person to join that team fight, all of the cooldowns on the side of Abyss would have been blown on non-relevant members. At the end of the day, Kedu doesn't even fall in that engage, and there's absolutely nothing that they have in order to deal with this menace.
And that fight started as a 3-on-4 going in Abyss's favor. Suman was walking all the way up from the bottom lane, got there in time to clean up the team fight. A turret falls as well on top of that, and make it 2 turrets as ZZ was able to single-handedly take down bottom lane outer during that time. Propels Regicide even further ahead, now 3,500 gold ahead of Abyss.
Yeah, Regicide are just moving so much faster around the map. I've been a huge proponent of the fact that while it's really difficult to set up, if theoretically you could, the Ashe Q actually takes turrets down so much faster than Tristana Bomb, and you just saw it happen to the top side. They take a fight from Abyss, and they take the turret off of one wave, which was absolutely smart of Regicide to do.
And we saw Suman going very defensive to kick things off. 3 cloth armors picked up by him in the early game. That's paid off. Seeker's arm guard complete with Ninja Tabby.
Oh.
Now getting a Rod of Ages. Seb does collapse on towards Yele. Luch will dash over the wall, but Chen Shuan is here. Good courage of the Colossus pick up by Yele. Keeps him nice and healthy. They turn back on towards the Jarvan, stun locking him for days. Suman jumps over the wall and goes unstoppable.
Yeah, and that almost looked like a bait coming out from Abyss because 3 members moved up. Luch was there, Rosie was there, but they all dived out. Jarvan had flag drag, but he just didn't leave fast enough. He thought that he could take the team, and he just got completely locked down between the Sejuani and also the Alistar. Way too much.
And it's deja vu for Abyss, throwing back to game 1 that they played against Regicide last weekend. Exactly the same, very standard team composition from Regicide, completely tore apart Abyss. It was a very early victory for them as well. ZZ and Pabu will have a fight over blue buff, and Renekton will win that war.
Yeah, it kind of looks like ZZZ is just completely styling over Pablo in every single way.
Surprise, Alistar's the best Alistar's. Luch gets locked down. He will fall here. Yele gets that kill. Teleport's coming in from ZZZ to get into the back of this fight. Chen Shuan is still tanking up the turret. Some people say he will tank it for days as finally Pabu falls. Raid is trying to be the hero that Abyss need, but he's not the one they deserve right now because ZZZ gets another one, and it's Rosie, the last man standing. Not for long. Triple kill picked up by Triple Z.
And that was all instigated by Chen Shuan diving the mid lane turret. But that call must have been culminated between him, Suman, and also ZZZ. Using the mid-game power spike that comes out from this Renekton, getting so far ahead from the solo kills that he got against Pabu. That was absolutely insane. This Renekton is tanking for days. You take a look at his items. He's got a Ninja Tabi. He's got the Warden's Mail. He ain't diving to no turrets.
Here's that fight again. All started with this flank. So big flank.
Pretty much what happened was everybody dived on the side of Luch, and already Abyss are man down. Now you've got to take a look at who exactly is taking the turret. It's Chen Shuan on one side and it's ZZZ on the other. So pretty much this fight was pretty much Regicide's from the get-go. However, you take a look at this, ZZZ is just doing good work. It doesn't matter that he's tanking the turret. He's a Renekton with 2 kills already.
And we questioned Regicide's decision to bring in Chen Shuan as their support because Decoy looked great when he joined the roster. However, it seems like the communication skills that Regicide had picked up being a full Mandarin-speaking roster worked out. That turret dive was flawless from him.
Yeah, they just called it. As soon as Alistar went, you knew that he was going to pop his ultimate. You knew that he was going to tank about 10 turret hits. Meanwhile, ZZZ on the other side, they just had to rotate even further behind. And you got to take a look at Abyss right now, and you got to ask, where was that amazing early game that we were really praising them for? Because they moved around the map extremely strong. In normal mechanics, they fell down and they lost some individual team fights. However, they still managed to move around the map. But in this game, it's just not here.
Abyss do get a consolation prize. They dropped Rift Herald in the top lane. That charges down top lane out, which was already very low. But you take a look at the gold lead at the moment. In the jungle, it's just 500 for Yele. Big lead now in the mid lane, about 2,500 in Suman's favor. Sorry, 1,400 in Suman's favor. Bottom lane still just about 400 in both ways for AD carry and support. But ZZZ is 3,000 gold up over Pabu.
And you kind of got to assume that the mid lane matchup is really the worst hitting one here because Luch has branched out. He's trying to go for the early game. He's trying to go for the lane counter into the cast and doesn't find it. And now Cast has got a free avenue into the late game with all of his build path. You can take a look at him. Zhonya's Hourglass. Rod of Ages pretty much already stacked up and a Lichbane on the way. This guy's more than happy to teamfight already.
I mean, with a Dark Seal stacked up to 10 stacks, it's a good consolation prize for Suman as well. He's done well to survive this early game. He's now 7-1-5, looking to put on a clinic on the cast. And in fact, he's setting up for a flank over Abyss in the mid lane. On the way, pings are coming out from the rest of Regicide to try and collapse. Raid is in a difficult situation here.
The one advantage is that Pabu has teleport and ZZZ does not. But even then, with this 4v5, I'm not too certain.
Pabu did just go mega though, so a teleport from him won't be that great. Seb will finally spot out Suman, who was camping in this brush. Gets a bit of damage down. ZZ does, however, get collapsed on by Luch. Will be taken out quite low by the combo. Will try to dice out towards the base of Abyss. Raid should be able to jump over with Pabu and help him pick up this kill.
Yeah, but while they're doing this, Regicide actually moved to the top side of the map and they're already pressuring down a turret. A kill for a turret, the turret gives more gold and it also opens up the map for so much potential from Regicide.
And any other day, that would have been a free kill. Luch was forced to use Ignite, almost had to flash away as well. ZZZ took them on 2-on-1. Even called upon Raid to jump down into the bottom lane to help them with that kill. As things stand, though, it's starting to be a disaster for Abyss. They are 7,000 gold behind Regicide just 22 minutes into the match.
And the one reprieve that they really have is the late game potential from Raid, and also you got to say the turret taking potential if theoretically they want a team fight from Luch as well. However, simply because of how far behind Luch is, he doesn't have the ability to really assassinate anybody on the side of Regicide. I doubt that he even has the full maximum capacity to dive onto Kedu without seeing a whole lot of Alistar and also Renekton in his face. That's extremely punishing coming in as a Lucian because you don't have a very defined target. The only thing that Abyss can really do now is potentially pick, because they still have the amazing wombo between a Jarvan ultimate, between a Nara ultimate, it's a wall that Jarvan has artificially created, and also from the Galio ult. But that's 3 ultimates for a catch. They might not even win the team fight after that.
And this Alistar pick is really working out for Regicide as well. Forgoing the Ardent Sensor support round, he's gone for Knight's Vow as well as Sidestone picked up with his Moby Boots. He's been in 13 of these 16 kills. As you mentioned, tanked up the turret in one of those big team fights, and has been a strong roaming force for Regicide in this match. Looking a bit the front line they really need. Abyss are still grouping up as Regicide want to take away Abyss's red buff, and they will do.
Wow, that was almost free, and you can see the happiness that's coming out from the side of Regicide. They're taking everything. They're sacking the entire jungle of Abyss because they took down that top lane turret as a trade-off for the kill down onto ZZZ, and now this is completely blind. Abyss have absolutely no idea. They finally put down the blue one.
This is a 1-3-1 coming out from Regicide. They've sent ZZZ into the top lane. They have Stewman going up against Luch in the bottom lane. Luch did not bring teleport to Summoner's Rift. Stewman still has his, and Regicide want to burn this down. Wards have been placed into the pit. There are control wards there. Church and Yele are going low. Alistar has used his ultimate. The rest of Abyss want to go in, but look at ZZZ. He's already in the backlines. He wants to fight the rest of Abyss by himself. Seb, no, you can't flash into a wall and steal Baron. Yele gets that one. He'll fall for that as well. ZZZ is still alive somehow. They stun lock the AD carry. Raid's in trouble. Pabu's jumping the heck out of there. Kedu's on the flash forward, trying to collapse on towards the Tristana. Rosie in trouble. Will get taken down quite low by Kedu. Will be able to pick up the kill as well. And Stewman's coming in for the cleanup. Calling the janitor because cleaning duty is about time for Regicide.
And you can see the cockiness coming out from Regicide. They call the Baron even after the blue ward comes out, when all of their members are pretty much less than half HP. They say, nope, we can still burn it down. ZZZ, all you need to do is run interference on the backside, and then after the Baron is taken, they take the entire fight.
Let's see what Abyss decide to do here, because that could probably be game for Regicide if they want to try and push their luck. 19 seconds on Raid till he's back up. They'll settle with the Inhibitor turret as well as Inhibitor, and back off towards their base. 10,500 gold ahead of Abyss.
So now, when Regicide go back, you have to take stock of what they just got. That was a massive Baron power play, because not only did they manage to get the Baron itself, they managed to take down 3 members of Abyss, and they also managed to take down a turret as well as an Inhibitor. That Inhibitor being down for top side means that they can now focus naturally towards the bot side, and there's still a TP available for ZZZ. He can either push top or mid, and they can pressure a dragon when it comes up.
And you see Regicide reacting to that quite well. Stewman was the man that teleported into that fight, so they do send ZZZ into the bottom lane. There are inner turrets in both the mid and bottom lane for Abyss to defend, but being 10,000 gold down makes it very difficult to defend against a Baroned up Regicide. Seb and Luch waiting in the wings. Control ward is placed down by Churn, spots them out. They all default back to mid lane to defend that objective. Churn moves in, clears out wards with the rest of Regicide. ZZZ is still split pushing with Baron buffed minions on this turret. Raid comes down, but he's only going to be able to tickle that Tristana. Seb does take a bit of damage here. We'll get locked down. First stun combo comes out of the duo of Churn and Yele. Another one from the Sejuani forces him to flying and drag out. Next to no health remaining on that Jarvan.
Yeah, but you got to take a note that whenever they do that, they draw so many members of Abyss to defend, and they can't even go to either of the 2 lanes.
Yep, mid lane inner turret is going to fall. Raid is trying to get pop shots on towards Chensho, but does next to no damage. Right there, tickling ZZ just a little bit more. Mid lane inhibitor turret is going to go down here. Keto gets good damage on the turret, even tanks it up for good measure. Regicide have broken the base of Abyss once again. Pabu is going to go mega, can try and force a fight.
Oh, he's got
jumps in, gets knocked back by Churn, and can't even collapse onto Stewman. ZZZ in the meantime almost see that it takes down Raid. That's next to a solo kill onto the AD carry. Seb jumps in, he's the first to fall. Kedu gets that kill. Stewman riff walks on top of the Galio to take down another one. And Regicide will take down the second inhibitor. They're onto the Nexus turrets.
And Regicide, they just knew exactly what they needed from the get-go. They drafted to their strengths, they drafted to their comfort, and when you know that you can play this composition well, you also know that you can win.
And that's game 1 going to Regicide in the first match. of this series, and that was a very dominant match as well for the Red Side squad.
Yeah, it kind of looked clinical in the early game. I think the one advantage that you could really give towards Abyss is their early game warding, because when they went into the jungle, they could really place down the vision, they could really escape from it, but that didn't culminate into anything. While they were trying to get those jungle camps, that's about 100 gold for the cost of 3 members going into the jungle, they were losing kills left, right, and center. That's 300 gold, so it's absolutely not worth it. The only one advantage they really got was the first structure bonus in the mid lane, but even then, that wasn't enough to shore up all of their holes.
I mean, speaking of the mid lane, Luch was about 30 CS and a kill up over Sealman. He went back to base, picked up 3 cloth armors, as well as a Doran's shield, a ring as well, Dark Seal, as well as the potions being picked up by the Castan, and he still survived that lane.
Yeah, it was the most defensive build imaginable, but, you know, desperate times call for desperate measures. You get what you need to get in the early game so that you can get what you want to get late game, and you just saw late game, Suman managed to absolutely roll over them. It was pretty much the ambient gold that he picked up from other things getting taken around him, and also the pressure that was alleviated from mid lane that really allowed Regicide to give Suman that room to breathe.
And it looked like deja vu for the Abyss lineup as they were not able to take down Regicide in game number 1. They go 1-up in this best of 3 series, but then go to a 10-minute break. They'll be back with game 2 shortly. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. If you're just tuning in, we witnessed Regicide absolutely stomp Abyss in game number 1 of this best 3 series, and it's all on the line here, Preacher. We've got 1 or 2 more games left, and the winner of this series goes straight back into the OPL.
It is, but I don't think that Regicide feel that way, because we all know what happens when they get their first win. We saw it last time. They go full solo queue. So shout out to Vicarious. He did a really good draft in game number 1. I think he's going to be taking a backseat ride in game number 2.
I mean, I was talking to Spawn after their games last weekend over Abyss, and he reckons he's one of the coaches of the split. Despite the fact that Regicide finished second last, he still thinks he's one of the best coaches that we have in the OPL.
Yeah, I think so as well. I think that he's extremely smart in the way that he drafts. He has to accommodate for the champion pool that his players play, while also trying to tactically ban away from the other side. So if you actually go through all of his drafts again, you have to say, wow, this guy, he must play a lot of chess, because he's really doing good work.
I mean, now the question is, are Regicide going to throw caution to the wind and do exactly what they did last weekend? Vicarious came out and said that if Regicide won game 1 against Abyss last weekend, convincingly, he would let them play whatever comfort pick they like. We got a Rammus for Yele, we got Riven for ZZZ. It was fun to watch.
Yeah, so while this isn't last week and no promises have been made, you got to assume that the same conditions stand, because everything else did. They dominated the very first game. You got to say that it's convincing fashion, because there's just frankly no other argument that you could possibly make. Let's see what they can potentially get for their team.
But unlike last weekend, there is a lot on the line in this match. Winner stays in the OPL and they do not have to play the Promotion-Relegation tournament, whereas for the side of Abyss, this is a big game for them as well. Not just because they can stay in the OPL, but Abyss's second team, their sister team, is currently trying to fight their way through the promotion tournament to get into the OPL as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you're on the side of Abyss, then maybe you're looking at this entire situation and wondering, I don't really want to be short up by my little brother. I want to really perform well for myself. But even beyond that, they are on the precipice of potentially going into the relegation tournament. This is really the outer cups, where the person who wins goes right back into the OPL. No more worries, no more dramas, no more games. Now they really have to shore it up.
Now we have to see if Regicide are going to do the exact same thing they did last time, which is they picked very standardly for the first 3 picks. Then they threw in the Rammus as well as the ZZZ Riven top lane. But that's not going to be the case.
Nope.
They lock in Sejuani for Yele again. So let's go through the bans that have come through. Gragas, Maokai, as well as Callista banned out by Regicide. Abyss, they take away Renekton, Braum, as well as Xayah.
Yeah, they shared the same feelings that you did. They just thought that the Sejuani was a little bit too strong in the first game, did a whole lot of good work early on, which actually shored up a whole lot of our questions from Yele. But also, they thought that this is a little bit too much to bear, because they don't really want to troll in the second game and potentially lose from that point onwards. So what they do is they throw caution to the wind and they pick standard.
And the first 2 picks from Abyss are going to be
Identical.
Jarvan as well as Tristana. So very similar to what we had in game number 1.
Could we literally have a complete mirror match of what happened in game number 1? Only time will tell, Fish, as we slowly get to go through. But hey, talking about solo queue.
Yeah, talk about solo queue. Fiora has been locked in for Regicide at the moment. Trenchred's going to pick up his Alistar. We're going to see what the final pick of this draft phase is going to be for Abyss. So ZZZ, again, picking up another very split push-oriented champion.
Yeah, and you got to assume that right now they're looking towards the bottom side of the map, because last time they didn't really give a whole lot of priority over to Rosie. How can I tell? I guess it's because I'm qualified.
Oh, Mr. Kiwi's joined us back on the desk here. We have Mr. Koala over here as well. They're both on my side now.
You stole it.
I'll give Mr. Koala go back.
Thank you. Thank you very much. But in all honesty, they actually focus on the mid lane. They pick themselves up a Cassidy.
Well, this time around they do pick up the Cassidy for themselves, like you mentioned. So Regicide can pick whatever they want into the Cassidy pick. So they don't want Silman to get his hands on that assassin again.
Yeah, but what can go into Cassin is the Lucian that we saw last time. But even more than that, they could go for something even bigger in the form of a Zed, in the form of a Talon. We know that lethality does very well into Cassin, because, you know, all you can really do is build 3 cloth armors early on. That can be counted. However, the one downside of that is the fact that you'll be lacking massively in magic damage if you decide to go through it.
I mean, we did see Claire play Fiora into Cassidy in the mid lane during the regular split of the OPL.
It's possible.
Played by Legacy. Can't remember which team they were up against. But Zed is the final ban from Abyss. They respect the assassin pool that Silman can bring to the table, and they don't want Lucian to be counterpicked in this matchup. Bard is the ban that comes out from Regicide here. Big target ban towards Rosie.
Yeah, support is still available for a bit, so they do decide to ban away that pull simply so that Rosie doesn't quite get one of his favorite champions going down into this game. But speaking about Suman's champion pool specifically with the Assassins, this is something that was actually curated through the OCS. He was allowed to play Assassins. He actually flourished on Assassins when he was playing on both X5 and also Regicide throughout the OCS because pretty much nobody could deal with it. He had raw mechanics that just allowed him to get solo kills in mid lane. That's why he tends towards them.
And unfortunately, his performance in the OPL has not been that great. The first few weeks, he had a terrible performance in the lineup, and only really in week 9 did he stand out. That game as well, when he played Cassidy again, he did stand out once more.
Of course, the Cassidy is something that comes to mind. Another thing is also the Ahri in game number 2. It wasn't the carrying potential for his team, but it looked extremely solid in a meta where Ahri is not. So you could also have to give it to him to expand in that sense.
Well, let's see what they decide to pick up here. Regicide. Pabu is going to be playing Poppy in the top lane. No way. That's a Yorick? No, they changed it the last second. Right as it says 00 on the countdown time, and they change over towards Vladimir. I thought we were going to get the undead man top side of the map.
And also the Fiora in mid lane. Unfortunately, I do not believe that I've ever seen Suman play Fiora, so that is an advantage.
But we will get the Vladimir, which is another one of Suman's comfort champions. Into the Cassidy, not as potent. That's not going to be a Rammus. They need an 80 carry.
I don't really think that any of these guys can really substitute 80 carries, so they will have to pick that one up. But going back to the Vladimir, it has a really shoddy time into the Cassidy simply because early game Vladimir's cooldowns on his transfusion are extremely high, and the damage is more or less mitigated on the side of Cassidy.
Final pick from Regicide is the Varus. That was banned out by Abyss in game number 1, so really respecting Kedu's prowess in that champion. Shenshma's got his Alistar one trick again. And now we'll get to see what Rosie decides to pick up for himself to pair up with Raid in the bottom lane.
But if you cast your mind back to 7-4, 7-5, pretty much the ADC of choice were both Ashe and Varus. So you've got to assume that this is just a hark back to, once again, comfort, just like game number 1.
And let's see how this one goes. Rosie does pick up Morgana, so we'll get to see League of Arden Sensor in this match, at least for Abyss.
Yeah, at least for one side. It's not quite the League. It's possibly just the Little League, you know, the B League. The... what is it? I'm completely just... No. my head go boom. No, I don't get this one at all. However, I can tell you for absolute certain that Morgana's Black Shield does in fact proc Ardent Sensor. And even more than that, if she decides to go for something like Stoneborn Pact on her Q, that could also proc it.
And Ardent Sensor is a very strong item. Supports it for going side stones very early on, going as much gold generation as they possibly can as well to pick it up as early as possible. It is getting nerfed in the next patch, but it's out of control. I saw Carbon tweeting out that he played Lulu jungle just so he could deny the opponent's support from Lulu, and he picked up Ardent Sensor.
Yeah, it kind of makes sense. It's just one of those items that's extremely strong. I mean,
yes, that makes sense.
Yes.
The fact that Carbon played Lulu jungle does not make sense.
Not so much, but when we're talking about it all in all, Ardent Sensor is extremely strong at the current moment. The one question that I have for this coming into for Abyss is, what does Rosie start with? Does he go for the Spelties because we know that Morgana can proc it so easily with her Corrupted Soil, or does he go for something like the coin to get even more gold? Only time will tell, and I'm really curious to see how he adapts or doesn't adapt if he's still comfortable with the previous.
Yeah, so very curious to see how Rosie's going to play this Morgana in the bottom lane. We saw Ejin pull out in the OPL. It's a great success for the Chiefs. Did very well with that champion. Raid's picked up Tristana once again. He didn't quite stand out in game number 1.
Yeah, but that's because he didn't really get a good chance to do so. And I think that when you're playing a hyper carry with a reset as well, it is really dependent on your team. Sure, you can say, you're playing Tristana, you got to late game, you're the person who should be outputting damage, right? Well, wrong. Unfortunately, the rest of your team have to burst down one of the members, so you get a reset on your rocket jump before you can really go ahead and hyper carry your team. And that never really happened for him. Pretty much he fell before anybody on the side of Regicide fell, and that really took away the win from his sails.
This time around, we're going to have Seb back on the Jarvan again, but top side of the map is going to be Poppy into Fiora. It's a decent matchup for Poppy, if I remember correctly.
It's one of the few tank matchups that actually does very well into Fiora. Not because Fiora doesn't do too much damage into it, she still does have a very fair share of true damage, but simply because the base tankiness of her means the only damage coming out from Fiora is the true damage. The physical from the auto attacks pretty much mitigated from the passive from Steadfast Presence. So yeah, all in all, it's going to be a really even matchup. And this is something that Pablo has actually played a lot in the OCS. Coming up into the OPL when he was initially on Abyss Red, he played pretty much half of his games on Poppy because he knew that this was his stock standard pick.
Yeah, so let's see how Pabu does on that Poppy pick. CCC picking up the Fiora is quite curious. It was very early into the draft phase that he locked in the Fiora top lane, and he was playing Renekton last match. Renekton was not only able to take down Pabu in a couple of solo kills, but he's also a big teamfight presence. They're removing that teamfight portion from their team comp.
Yeah, but they are going for the 1v1 potential, and you got to say that's actually where he stood out. He was 1v1ing Pabu. He got 2 solo kills, and the third one was almost, if you didn't include Suman. Suman was just coming down as an insurance package, but he still pretty much soloed Pabu in that instance as well. So this guy does a whole lot of good work when we're talking about his individual potential, and now on Fiora, he has even more of that. On this patch, Fiora got buffed to the point where she has 45% movement speed from her passive, as opposed to 30%. So it's those small numbers that have really busted her right back into meta.
And this, again, heading into this game, BIS changed up their draft. They banned out Xayah as well as Braum, which were not banned in the last match. And neither champion was picked by Regicide in the last game either. They went for Ashe as well as the Cass in the mid lane, which left Varus as well as Vladimir to be picked.
Yeah, it was extremely strange because we're also talking about Kedu. Kedu's not known to play things like Xayah. That's way too recent for his memory. He likes to go back to the control ADCs like the Ashe, like the Varus, and you got to really assume what exactly is Abyss doing in this very second ban phase. You did mention that Abyss have lacked their coach coming into the later half of the split. That might be something that's actually bleeding through now as we take a look at the bans, because it really did impact them. They didn't study up on Regicide's champion pool. They didn't ban away correctly according to the team composition.
It's a very curious draft phase coming out from Abyss, and they're fighting for their lives here. Their backs against the wall. One more game would put Regicide back into the OPL and send Abyss into the promo-relegation match against Outlaws, and then their sister team, Abyss, would have to take on TM in the promo middle match if they lose this next game, or if they lose the third game as well.
Yeah, if they lose that game. However, you know, that's all coulda, woulda, shoulda. We have to take a look at how this game goes. I think that Abyss still have a decent chance to pull out a game simply because they're early game.
Well, let's see how they do as we head back onto Summoner's Rift for game number 2 between Regicide and Abyss. Still on the Sage side of the map. Regicide will be playing blue side, Abyss will be on red side. Stoneboy Pack was picked up by Morgana and started coin as well into Chunshun's Alistar.
Yep, the coin just gives you so much gold generation. She's not necessarily going for the damage, simply because early on, if you take a look at the side of Kedu, he's already gone for the Doran shield, so the very little damage that you put down onto him actually gives him a whole lot of health if he manages to get out of that safely. It's not really a good trade pattern that you want to take early on. She goes for the more defensive option. She goes for the money option.
Raid not opting to go for the target instead that we've seen on quite a few 80 carries in the bottom lane to propel the sensor pickup for their support. But I'm very curious to see how Abyss changed their playstyle. They still have a very team fight-oriented team composition. Regicide have definitely moved away from that with their Fiora pick in the top lane.
Yeah. So normally I would say yes, get the Relic Shield simply because it does share a whole lot of gold with your support so that they can get the sourcing even quicker. However, in the context of this game, Tristana's early game is actually not too terrible. And if Rosie manages to get a Dark Binding down onto Kedu, all of a sudden you can see Ray jumping in at level 2, potentially bursting him down before there's any response. So this is a smart start simply because of the level 2 potential that they could have.
Both junglers will get a very big leash. Seb starts on his blue buff. We see Yele changing up his pathing. Instead of starting top side of the map, he's going to be picking up his Raptors first.
It's a very smart path from him simply because it allows him to go. But did he actually miss the red fish? I'm not too certain. His team leashed, but didn't. That was strange.
Potentially, who knows? We're looking at mid lane at the time. Yele is going to start that one up now. He's at half health, so might have dropped the leash by accident there.
Yeah, that's a little bit unfortunate to see. But going back to the whole map, what you got to take a look at is how fast Seb gets onto the map. Because when he does, he doesn't necessarily go to lanes. He makes lanes go to him. He invades very deep into Regicide's jungle. He tries to steal away some camps, and he does so with the protection of both Luch and potentially Pabu now, if we're taking a look at the top side of the map, both with fairly decent early game if they manage to get the early rotations. It's just if it's an even 3v3, you got to give it over to Regicide. But because of the early game that Yele didn't have, this might be really uneven.
Yeah, steadfast presence, as you see there from Pabu, denies the major damage source from Fiora. Stops not only the gap closer, puts on a longer cooldown, but also denies damage to him. Simply Sanguine pulls his way out. He'll get Blood Rush here as well to heal up back to close to full. Luch wants to trade back, but he's wasting quite a bit of mana against Vladimir here.
Yeah, that was a very standard interaction between Jarvan and Vladimir. That's pretty much what you do all of a sudden. The CC capability is gone. Cassidy doesn't bring any to this lane, so the gank was inevitably going to go that way. It's really questionable in that sense for Seb to go into the mid lane because he could have pretty much predicted that this is what was going to happen. The Sanguine fall into absolutely nothing. He should have either pressured the jungle or top side of the map, but because he didn't do either, it sets him back a little, not a whole lot.
Ooh, he might be able to spot out Yele here, and Yele is very low. Gromp gets down quite low as well. Let's see if he does go for the contest. Pabu is going to wrap around.
Seb doesn't have smite.
Oh, slams him into one first, but does get picked up by Seb.
So that was just a standard bait coming out from Abyss. They saw the whole situation. They knew that Seb didn't have smite. When you don't have smite and you go and invade the enemy jungle, you're not looking for the camp, you're looking for kills. He calls Pabu down, and they get it.
This all stones back to the pawn leash, given onto the red buff, or ELA dropping the leash at least. He's gone back to base, picked up both his jungling items as well as a Hunter's Potion. He does not want to be put off the map anymore.
That's a very strange pickup coming out from Yele. I mean, we haven't seen Hunter's Potion in ages. It's not really an optimal item by any sense. It's more of a farming item, but when you're going for the farming item, you got to question, why didn't you go for something like, of course, the Cinderhulk Rush that you could have? You could have bought a Ruby site. You could have bought a Ruby for pretty much the same amount. And it's just a whole lot of playstyle that we start to see coming out from Yele. He's defaulting back to more his farming type, and that was the difference between him and the previous jungler.
That's put Abyss slightly ahead in this early game, especially with mid lane doing very well for Luch at the moment. He's used his first teleport to get back into the lane. He's gone back to base, got a Dark Seal, refillable potion, and a Ruby Crystal for himself. Suman is not having a good time so far against Luch. And Chen returns to the bottom lane as well. This has been a farm fest between the two AD carries. Raid wants to go back to base. He has a pickup for himself, gets a pickaxe. But this game, it's still fairly even besides that single pickup onto Yele, who's on your screen now.
Yeah, it's a very slow game, reminiscent of the very first one, but that's a good thing because it gives us a lot of time to actually talk about the build path that Luch actually has available for him. Normally you see that Ruby Crystal and you just say, oh, of course, that's going into Catalyst, which is going into a Rod of Ages, but recently we've seen a whole lot of experimenting international with potentially going for an Abyssal Mask early. And the reason for that is because they're actually going into a double magic composition of both a Vladimir and a Sejuani. So the Abyssal just gives you so much. Speaking of Sejuani.
Raid being so aggressive here. Seb's going to flash forward. Teleport does come down into the bottom lane from
TP.
Pabu. ZZ has already used his. They collapse onto Yele again. He's going to fall down for the second time. Or is he? Flashed on. Big knockout coming out for Chen Shren though. They will knock up the AD carry as well. Kedu can't take down Raid, who rocket jumps himself away. ZZ gets a lot of free time, but that's another kill for Abyss.
Yeah, and Raid, he just goes and baits the entire side of Regicide. They don't know that Seb is here. Excellent flash.
Kedu as well. Kedu is probably going to fall down here. Flash on top of Raid. He wants that kill. Misses the piercing arrows. That was a free kill for Kedu there, but he stuffed it up.
And that was such a heartbreaker. He could have traded 1-for-1, and a 1-for-2 looks a whole lot better than a 2-for-0. But right now, Abyss, not only do they pick up the kills on the bottom side of the map, they're about to get first structure bonus as well.
And the first turret is going to be a race between Regicide as well as Abyss, but Abyss 4 members strong are wailing away at this turret. Not only will they get that as well as the 2 kills, but that's a lot of experience being denied away from Kedu. Burning his summoner spells as well. Abyss are 2,300 gold in the lead. Just 7 minutes into the game.
And that was the strength of Abyss that we were talking about before this game even started, about how they make amazing early game rotations. Before, it was into the jungle of Regicide. This time, they change up the strategy. They actually go straight into the bottom side. The TV gets called by Pabu. That wasn't to get the initial kill. That was so that he could stick around and bust down the turret for the rest of his team. That was a really smart play, simply because of the foresight that the team had. On the other side of the map, Regicide, they didn't respond to it because they knew for certain that ZZZ just used his teleport to get back to lane, and there was absolutely nothing to defend the turret.
Yeah, Pabu returns towards top side of the map, but ZZZ with just a Doran's Blade and a Phage is not able to take down that top lane outer turret. The rest of Abyss's bottom side of the map are sticking around in the jungle, looking to try and collapse on towards Chen Shren. Suman trying to trade aggressively against Luch, despite the fact the rest of his team is coming in behind him. Gets good damage down. Chen Shren seems to have escaped this brawl between Rosie as well as Raid. Yele joins the fight as well.
And already you can see that Yele's actually taking no damage, but in mid lane, Suman.
Yeah, he's going to take it down very low. He's burned both his flash as well as the ignite. Suman so close to falling, but just a little bit more damage would have been enough.
Yeah, playing with fire here. He stuck around even though he saw the fight that was happening right under him. It was less than a screen's distance away, but still he decided to stay on the map, and that was extremely risky from him. Now he has no summoners coming into this lane, and he also missed a huge wave that has to get picked up by Yele, who doesn't even get hold of it.
And as you mentioned, this is the type of early game we've expected from Abyss multiple times when they've played against Regicide. This time around it's working out well for them. Now they have to hold on to this lead. Suman is slowly falling behind in this mid lane. Luch is starting to outscale the Vladimir.
One thing that I really want to point out here, Fish, is just the warding that Abyss have done. This is something that regardless of whether they're ahead or behind, they always keep up consistently. If you take a look at the top side of Regicide's jungle, it is lit up like a Christmas tree. A few blue wards from the side of Regicide, but a lot of red wards from the side of Abyss. And that is in part due to the fact that they know this is the next priority they want to push for. They want to know when Regicide is rotating to the top side so that they could potentially get a herald for their efforts. This is a whole lot of foreshadowing that's happening right now.
Still, despite the early action, now it's a bit quiet between Regicide as well as Abyss. Pabu as well as ZZZ are just trading top side of the map. Bottom side of the map is trying to rotate into the mid lane, it seems. Kedu has been trying to free farm as much as possible. In fact, Kedu up quite a bit of CS over Raid here, 78 to 80 to 59.
Yeah, but there is a kill, so that more or less evens it out and actually moves it over to Raid side. If you take a look at the gold between those two, it's not really indicative of much because both of these two champions, they need to get their items later on in the game, so the early game gold discrepancy is merely loose change in between them. But hey, speaking of the ward advantage they had, they even get a free dragon on the top, on the bot side that was completely blind from the side of Regicide. They had no idea.
Infernal Dragon as well, big pickup for Abyss. Big discrepancy in the bottom lane is the fact that Rosie has about 1,000 gold more than Chen Shen. You'd expect that from an Island Sensor support over a melee support that does not want the item. But for now, top side map, Pabu is still doing very well into this Fiora matchup.
Yep. He's doing extremely well because this is pretty much what he had to play through all throughout the first split of 2016. He had to go against Praetor's Fiora back when he was a Fiora and Lissandra 2-trick, and he knows this matchup inside and out. Not too much has changed between these two champions. Poppy got nerfed, then she got buffed. Fiora got nerfed, then she got buffed. So all in all, it's very even, and he has a very good idea of how this lane goes because this is really one of the pressure points they have to hold for themselves. Poppy isn't really known as somebody who gets ahead in lane because of a lack of kill pressure. However, this is one of the places on the map where if Abyss collapse, they can make a whole lot of good work.
Now ZZZ does have his first item though of the Black Cleaver. However, Abyss do swap over the AD carry and support to the top side of the map. Regicide will match. So Fiora is in a very long lane against this Poppy now. Seb is even making his way up to the top lane.
Yep. So you got to take a look at this and ask, why is Regicide moving their bot lane to the top side? It's not only to counter this lane, but it's also because they want to deny away the long lane that Regicide's bot side have to play if they stood upon bot side. However, now, Abyss, they're going into the jungle of Regicide. They're not only trying to contest, they're trying to put down a whole lot more vision.
Let's see if it's going to be enough. Luch still training very well against Suman, but running slightly low on mana. Does a good job of keeping the Vladimir nice and low, so he's always being threatened to be taken down. ZZZ still working towards his Ravenous Hydra. Once he picks that item up, we'd expect the matchup to shift in the bottom lane and Pabu would start to lose control there. But as we mentioned, Fiora not a teamfight based champion.
No, definitely not. And that's going to be the punishing factor coming out from Regicide because the collapses from ZZZ last game were part of the reason why they got to win mid lane so convincingly. Speaking of mid lane,
it's going to be a brawl between mid lane and jungle. Actually, that's Yele flashing on top of Suman. Luch actually falls. The Cassidon's down, and Vladimir still in this fight. Rosie now in trouble. ZZZ comes in. Big knock up from Church. Seb forced to flash over the wall, but Kedu follows through. One more auto attack's going to get that one. A double for ZZZ, and this game has been turned on its head. Regicide are back in this one.
And you know what? ZZZ just says, I don't care about your knowledge. I don't care about your rules either. Renekton into Nah, I'm going to win on Renekton. Fiora in a team fight, I'm going to do well as well.
does well indeed. 2 kills picked up. He's already had to see us against Pabu. Assuming, why are you taking this turret? You've got to go into Sanguine Pool, buddy. Raid's going to probably jump in his face. Let's see what's easy. Oh no!
Oh.
Flash over the wall. He gets the blood rush as well. And the killing spree is going to be picked up by ZZZ.
Oh, that was way too aggressive. He wanted to get the reset so that he could actually get back to safety. But the flash coming out from Suman, very last minute, quick reflexes, extremely smart guy. He gets himself out to safety and they actually get a kill.
An absolute disaster strikes for Abyss just as they were approaching a 3,000 gold lead over Regicide in the early game. That's all gone. We're about 300 gold between the two teams, and Regicide have a Rift Herald in their back pocket now.
Oh, that is so punishing. The only upside that Abyss have right now over Regicide is the 1 turret that they have. But like you said, the Rift Herald is available for Suman, it actually looks like. Not too sure why the mid laner took it, but nonetheless, this gives them a whole lot of potential to actually even up the turret game, which if they do, would actually swing the gold over to their favor.
And we already know top lane outer turret has been bruised slightly by ZZC. It's still fairly healthy. But let's see what Regicide decide to do next. No teleport now for ZZZ, but both Luch and Pabu's teleports on cooldown. Pabu does get a tackle into Silman, but not into the wall, so he lives.
Not too sure why the side of Abyss is putting so much pressure down onto this Vladimir. You know that while you can push it into his turret and get a whole lot of chip damage down from the minions naturally, you're never going to be able to actually catch the Vladimir out in isolation simply because of his pull.
They almost catch out Kedu there, and that's what Luch was rotating up for. Blue buff has been started by Yele. Seems like he's going to pick this one up.
No need to give it over to the Vladimir. Not too much of a loss, whereas on the other side, if you get a blue onto Sejuani, all of a sudden your ultimate cooldown is reduced heavily if you do decide to use your ultimate within the next couple of minutes. In addition to that, it also means you're never wanting if you need a dash at the very last second. So all in all, it's a very decent idea.
ZZZ's almost got his Ravenous Hydra as well, and that's just a time bomb.
Yep.
For Regicide now. Eventually he's going to pick that up, and Pabu is not going to be able to defend against the Fiora.
Well, here's a question. It might not necessarily be the Ravenous. He could also opt the Titanic, which does shore up a whole lot of his problems coming into team fights. It means that he does more damage onto the backside if he so chooses to do so, as opposed to split push. But like last game, he does a whole lot of split pushing.
I mean, potentially we question that about his Riven if he's going to go towards Titanic so he can team fight a bit better. But he probably will go for the Ravenous Hydra on Fiora for that bit of sustain and split push ability. Rift Herald has been dropped top side of the map. We'll get a charge in. That turret is going to fall. The rest of Regicide now collapse towards mid lane, which means no one is going to defend against Rift Herald for the second charge. Ooh. Splitting Abyss across the map. Pabu still no teleport. ZZZ cannot join a fight, and Regicide probably like it that way.
And this is super punishing because now some members of Abyss have to go over to the top side as we pan over as well in order to deal with this Rift Herald, who is the 6th man coming out from Regicide. Regicide get free control of the dragon.
They do send Luch over to deal with it. He'll be able to take it down. Should not be able to get another charge on towards his turret. Maybe he might. Just a bit of chip damage. But as you mentioned, Infernal Dragon 2 is picked up by Regicide, equalizing the Elemental Dragons taken into this game, and they have now taken the gold lead for themselves. Just about 400 gold up, but we've already seen what Regicide can do, 3,000 gold behind.
Yeah, that was all planned coming out from Regicide. Pretty much they move over to the top side in order to get the Rift Herald, but now you take a look at the gold discrepancy, or lack thereof. The fact that Regicide have now swung it into their favor is massive. Speaking of massive, take a look over on the top side. It's more than a K difference, and when you're talking about a Fiora to Poppy, that's not insignificant. This Fiora is going to be doing a whole lot of damage coming in against Pabu's Poppy, somebody who we thought is just going to naturally be strong in his own sense and not really have too much problems until he gets to the team fight. Might not even be so.
It's a 450 gold lead for Kedu over Raid, and on the flip side, Seb is slightly ahead of Yele as well, dead even in the mid lane, and Rosie is ahead as a support with Ardent Center already complete for Morgana. That should help Raid out quite a bit. But Regicide do make a push towards mid lane, outer turret. 2 members of Abyss trying to collapse, not going to get close enough to Kedu. Continues chunking away at this Poppy.
Yeah, and that's really what we have to look out for. He's already got Blade the Ruined King complete for himself, as well as Berserker's Greaves, but while all of this is happening, Pabu can't respond to this. ZZZ is just free hitting.
Yeah, he's trying to run down towards bottom lane. He is going towards Ravenous Hydra, but crucially, he's got the Vampiric Scepter. Once Fioras pick up their lifesteal, the matchup starts to turn. Ravenous Hydra is the big point, but that's
the
a flash initiation. Kedo's been locked down into Cataclysm. Luch jumps in as well. Heal will come out. They get some good auto attacks in, but Raid's getting the resets onto Churn Shred. His ultimate does wear off. Binding connects. Yele's trying to stop the inevitable, but Luch jumps on in to get that second kill for Abyss.
And Abyss just pulled the trigger. They see Vladimir on the top side, no TP. They see Fiora in the bot side, sure she has TP, but Pabu can always stop it and just chase him, play yakety sacks. They call it in the mid lane.
This is a big play coming out from Regicide though. They call Suman in to try and defend this turret, but they also have ZZZ trying to cheat through the river, denying Abyss the chance to push for that turret. ZZ simply returns back into the bottom lane. So it's not all that bad for Regicide. Still dead even on gold, just losing a couple of kills in the mid lane.
Yeah, and realistically, you got to take a look over at the side of Regicide and ask the question, will they be 1-3-1-ing again? My hard answer that I would like to say is no, simply because they don't have double TP and it's extremely hard for Suman to rotate down if a fight happens, and also because Abyss is so good at pulling the trigger, but this is something they can't deal with. Look at this 1v1.
This is what I mean. Once you get the lifesteal, ZZ just takes over. Pabu cannot deal enough damage over the course of a single wave anymore to deny ZZ lifestealing back up off the subsequent wave. So he does get a natural turret there. Luch goes aggressive against Suman. He is fairly low. Pops the ultimate. Will get a blood rush as well to keep him back up to about half health. Chenchuan's even there just to threaten a bit more too.
Yeah, and you also got to praise Chenchuan for the way that he moves around the map. He knows that he's already got his ultimate, so he doesn't need any more experience to get any more levels. He is more or less trying to mirror Rosie at the current moment to deny the potency of this Morgana. Yeah, it's pretty much just Morg goes here, Ali goes here as well. All of a sudden you see that Suman's on less than a quarter HP, but he can still 1v1 Luch because of that safety.
So with that, Ravenous Hydra now picked up for ZZZ. Still no boots too, but he'll continue to split push in the bottom lane. Only one outer turret is left standing for Abyss. That's in the mid lane. It's been poked down to about half. Kedo and Chenchuan have taken residency in this mid lane as well to continue dealing with that. But Abyss don't want that one to fall. Keeping Cassidy top side of the map, they should send Palmer down into the bottom lane to defend against that.
But that's the real question that you have to ask coming into this game, because the downside of using Rift Health on the top side of the map is the fact that you can't use it mid. And if you don't have it available to bust down the outer turret of mid, then all of a sudden the game gets a whole lot harder. Mid turret is not only the gold that it provides, but it's also more symbolic of the amount of control you get into the side of Abyss's jungle. The fact that they can't break it down because pretty much everybody on Abyss is just going to be hard defending this is a bit of a worry coming through from Regicide. This might just be a dead game.
So we get a nice Veil picked up here by Seb, putting it on towards Raid, who's currently in the mid lane. Might be able to take down this turret here. It does back off as the rest of Regicide to show up. Yele has opted out the Knight's Vow on his Sejuani. Seb gone for the Righteous Glory, as Chen is looking to pick up a Knight's Vow for himself. It's about 700 gold away from that item.
Pretty standard item when it comes to having a Fiora on your team. She's the person who chases, but everybody else shouldn't miss out on the fun simply because of that. Now they're sieging down the mid.
Yep, this mid lane turret's gone. Staggered backs from Abyss allow Regicide to crash into the mid lane and break down the final outer turret of the game, opening up the map quite nicely for themselves. Suman will now move towards top side to defend against Luch, and ZZ is still putting on pressure against this Poppy.
But this was the active trade that Abyss wanted to go for. They purposely put Luch onto the top side of the map, knowing that the side of Regicide only can push mid lane. They pushed it down. There was no TP coming out of him. No TP from Pabu either, as he gets 1v1.
Yeah, ZZZ finds Pabu. He's trying to charge up the ultimate, knocks him back, but Yele's here as well. We'll lock him down. Meanwhile, though, Kedo has been taken down by Team Abyss. Chenchuan's going to fall shortly after. ZZZ wants to collapse with Yele. They want to try and pick up this fight. Suma's coming down, but he's way too far away. ZZZ gets one. 3 members strong of Abyss hunt him down. Good parry, but it's not going to be enough. Slowly but surely, they will get the shutdown kill, and Abyss get a couple more.
But that was a whole lot of summoner spells used that they will not have for the subsequent fights to come. And you got to take a look at the side of Regicide. What do they got now? Very little, because all of their members die in individual plays. They do get to bust down the mid turret though, so they can go home with that and possibly shot.
Big problem for Regicide now is the scaling from Abyss. Raid has 5 kills, 3 assists on his Tristana with an Ardent Sensor picked up by his support and Knight's Vow by his jungler. Luch as well. 2 kills for stacking up his Rod of Ages, looking for a Lichbane next as well.
Yeah, and that was the dark horse on the side of Abyss. We never really focus on Raid until he becomes the focus of the team. And all of a sudden, 5, 1, and 3. You can take a look at the goal discrepancy between him and Kedu. He is actually up by 1.5k. That is absolutely nuts when you consider the late game potential of a Tristana compared to a Varus. He is going to be doing such good work coming into this late game. And quite frankly speaking, you got to be fearful of your Regicide because you only really have ZZZ to deal with him, but he's not tanky. And the Baron gets started.
Regicide tried to start up Baron there, instantly pinged out by the rest of Abyss. They're going to collapse and put a couple of wards down. So cheeky Baron, but they don't pull the trigger on it. Big lead topside though. ZZZ is still a big win condition for Abyss. However, sometimes teams can deal with this by having double teleport, which they brought to the through Summoner's Rift in this match.
Of course, but Luch's one is down, so you always got to keep that in mind. The only upside that they really have is that Pabu can split push. However, when we're talking about Pabu split push into a Fiora,
ZZ's about to get the start. Pabu's got to teleport in for this.
Yeah, he has to teleport. And if he has teleport, then he's not going to be able to match ZZ's for the subsequent fight.
So ZZ is going to get a lot of damage on this bottom lane in a turret.
He chooses the walk, which means that the turret gets to half HP. Either way, it was going to be a loss for Abyss. They just choose the lesser checkmate.
I was fooled. I saw the pink ward on the map and I thought that was a big minion wave. It's just a pink ward. Unlucky, but ZZ does take it down to half health. Pabu eventually makes his way down. He's picked up a Righteous Glory for himself.
Oh, let's not downplay that. Just half health? That was in one push. And if you can imagine that he goes up again, that's going to be a lot of chip damage.
So that's a big team fight champion taking off the map for Abyss at the moment. Let's see if ZZ can keep him held down. The rest of Regicide still have to deal with this Cassidon pick, who is currently split pushing top side of the map. Regicide still maintaining control over the river.
You got to imagine right now, Abyss just want to stall the game for a couple more minutes because that will buy Luch the ability to get to level 16, get the 3rd rank ultimate.
Uh-oh, they dive on towards Kedu. He's probably going to die instantly here. Flashes out of the Cataclysm. Ray jumps into backlines, instantly exhausted by Trench and stun locked as well. Can they kill him in time? No, they can't. He rocket jumps out. ZZZ comes in, but Pabu's in the fight as well. Suman is nowhere to be seen, and Abyss probably going to take this fight. They try to lock down Pabu again. He will get taken down by ZZZ. Here comes Suman, but that's 3 members of Regicide taken down.
And that is why you do not fight Abyss when they have even numbers on you, because as soon as they all target focus one person down, combined between the burst that comes out from Cassidon and also the martial cadence that comes out from Jarvan's passive, all of a sudden somebody dies and Raid gets a reset. This guy is a monster. Now he is 5, 1, and 6 on this Tristana, and nobody on the side of Regicide can deal with him.
Yep, Kedo's positioning has been atrocious as well so far in this match. That's not the first time he's been caught out in a curious position in the mid lane. Where he flashed to should have been where he started that team fight, but unfortunately was already taken out quite low thanks to Cataclysm, and there you go.
Yeah, he just got caught up by a Dark Binding, and now you got to take a look at his impact, or rather lack thereof. He uses his ultimate to hit Raid, but that's just not enough for the rest of the entire team fight, because while he jumps away from his reset, he is just free hitting on all of these other members. Luch, very well done, actually gets the kill down onto Sejuani, but that is just more or less of a very clean fight for Abyss.
Also, second fight in a row that their mid laner Suman has not been there at the start. In fact, second time again. At the end of the team fight, was not able to get much down himself. Now, ZZZ no teleport. Pabu does not have his. Luch still has his own, so Abyss have the split push threat. And Fiora is still bottom side of the map. Means they're going to be able to take control over this Baron pit.
Absolutely, but ZZZ, he needs to think about where he's actually positioning on the map, because he doesn't have teleport. He had to use it for the very last fight. He might be joining the team, which is a little bit of a lost cause for Fiora, because she likes to be by herself, but it's better than being by yourself when a trigger gets pulled by Abyss, who are now so far, you know, they actually get to pull a quite significant lead on Regicide. It's 1k, they pull it back in their favor.
But as you mentioned, Cassidon now incredibly strong. Void Staff and Lichbane, fully stacked Rod of Ages and Dark Seal, as well as Raid, who's picking up his second seal item. Has the Executioners calling for good measure as well, reducing the healing from Vladimir in these team fights.
Somebody had to pick it up. Raid puts his hand up, says, I am the most fed person, I've got the most disposable income, I'll do it. Suman gets caught.
They lock down Suman. Churchill was looking aggressively there. Luch jumps on top to get some damage himself. Very safe at the moment on this Cassidon pick.
This Captain's actually doing a whole lot of good work. 4, 1, and 5, he's the silent carry right behind Raid. When Raid is a person getting resets and really getting the last bit of the team fight sorted, Luch is the person who's really instigating it, getting the resets down for Tristana, getting the rocket jumps available for Raid to reset, to really move around the team fights and get the additional damage down onto the side of Regicide. It's all instigated by Luch.
They lock down Suman again. Chen dashes in to get some crowd control there, but this mid lane outer turret is slowly getting whittled away. ZZ's teleport 1/4 off of cooldown. He's split pushing on top side of the map, and they ping out a big wave on the bottom lane that's currently pushing for Regicide.
Yeah, that's going to be a small 6-man for Regicide that is very slowly pushing down onto the bottom side, but that's eventually going to be a problem if Abyss don't decide to deal with it now. Luch has to go into the bottom side to clear it, because if he doesn't and it crashes onto his turret, all of a sudden Regicide can call a Baron.
Yeah, they ping it out. Regicide are going to start this one up. They want to try and rush this.
They're calling it now.
Let's see if Abyss can respond in
vision.
time. No vision being placed down. No wards coming out from Abyss just yet. Rosie's making his way over. Here comes Seb. Down to 4,000 health. The rest of Abyss do group up. Luch has teleport if he wants to join the fight. Poppy Copter comes up. Knocks out the jungler.
No.
Seb's in the pit. And Abyss take Baron.
No, that was set up by Pamu. He actually used his ultimate on the jungler. Everybody else moves out of the way. ZZZ goes in, but that just completely disables their team from securing it.
But let's see what Regicide can get off the back of this. It's currently a 4-on-5. Regicide 5-member strong. They collapse on towards Suman. They lock him down. Good stun from Pamu, and they kill the Vladimir straight away. Yele is going to get taken out as well. Ray gets all these resets, and the only thing Regicide can get is top lane in a turret.
Yeah, but that's just too little, too late for the rest of the entire team fight. ZZZ, he did the best of a bad situation, and he actually split push on the top to get that turret. However, when all is said and done, Abyss Esports, they come out with the team fight victory, they come out with the Baron, they come out with the Dragon as well.
There's no excuse there from Yele to be so close to the Poppy, just over the pit.
Worst case scenario, Kedu could have blocked it, and he could have been the sacrificial lamb to actually get hit by it and move back. At the end of the day, the only person who cannot is your jungler.
Good news story for Regicide is the fact that top side of the map still in favor of ZZ. Jungles are dead even. Mid lane, 2,000 gold lead. Bottom lane, about 1,400 in favor of Raid. So most of the gold lead is currently on Rosie. And if you want the gold lead on the opposite side to be on anyone, it would be their support. ZZ, again, still a split push threat. But Abyss are so far ahead that they can just knock down the rest of Regicide at any time.
Exactly, and now you can see that the shoe is on the other foot, Fish, because if you take a look at Pabu, he is now the person who is split pushing with the help of the Baron buff. He's not doing the majority of the damage, the minions are, but it's still extremely potent from the side of Abyss, because now the one advantage that Regicide really had in ZZZ split pushing is more or less shored up because of the Baron buff.
And Abyss have been picking on Regicide for the lack of wave clear. Mostly it's on this form of Kedu. Rosie has been really good with these dark bindings.
Yep, and ZZZ is splitting on the bot side of the map. He has to call this eventually, because if he plays chicken, Abyss is just going to get an inhibitor.
So, bottom lane inner turret falls as well. Regicide are going to lose their top lane here, but that's a flank coming out from ZZZ. They want to fight here. They lock down Seb. They might be able to get a kill on towards the Jarvan straight off the bat, turning it into a 4-on-5, and Regicide can now collapse onto the rest of the team.
Yeah, ZZZ is chasing, but I don't really think that they can find too much.
He's got ultimate. He's looking for it, throws it out, connects onto Rosie. Luch will turn around. They try to stun lock the Morgana. ZZ jumps in, takes a lot of damage. Luch gets back in as well. Chen reinitiates the fight. Good Vladimir ultimate, but Abyss can now turn around. They try to lock down Vlad. Good Sanguine Pull gets him back to safety.
Yeah, everybody else on the side of Regicide was so hesitant to do it. However, Yele moves forward, ZZZ moves forward. They all follow very sheepishly, and it's just fortunate for the rest of the members that Regicide back off, because if they chase it a little bit further, Cassidy getting kills, Tristana getting resets, could have ended up very yucky for them. Now, the one thing that you got to pull out of this is the fact that they make bold calls. Regicide, when they are behind, when there's a Baron wave pushing the top lane, they still give ZZZ the room to push bottom side. Was it worth? In my personal, professional opinion, I'm going to tell you a solid no. However, that's the call that they're willing to make.
Let's see if Abyss can continue to capitalize here. 4,000 gold up. Simple Seb fast presence stops Trench's initiation over Pabu. Now the rest of Abyss do collapse towards the bottom side of the map. Baron buff is down. However, they do have a 4,000 gold lead over Regicide. Especially when ZZ is holding 2,000 gold over Pabu. means the 4 members of Yele, Suman, Kedu, and Chunchun are very weak against the team fighting team comp of Abyss. And now this split push from Redeside has not worked out for ZZZ so far. They collapse on towards this turret, get good damage. Pabu going to get locked down under the turret, pops his Gargoyle Stone Plate to stay alive. Suman will take some damage in return. Yele wants in, he's trying to charge into the fight. Pabu will waste his ultimate here as well.
Yeah, he decides to hold on to it, which means that it goes on a very reduced cooldown. It only has about a quarter left to go. One thing that Abyss don't want to do is they don't want to go way too aggressive. So while Pabu was extremely tanky, he only took down about a third of his HP while he was tanking up the turret. He doesn't want to do that too many times because it's actually extremely punishing for the rest of his team. It means they don't have that solid front line. And the one downside of Abyss's team composition as opposed to the last one is while Seb can go in with Jarvan, there's no Galio ultimate to really follow up. On this team composition, really all you have is a Morgana who, without a flash, can't even use their ultimate to its maximum efficiency inside the Cataclysm.
Now, however, we are approaching late game. Raid is at 5 items, sitting on the Vamp Scepter as his 6th, and has not only Ardent Center, but Mikhail's, Redemption, Knight's Vow, Locket being picked up by the rest of his team to keep him nice and safe. And as a hyper carry, Raid should be able to take control of these team fights. Kedu, on the other hand, still sitting on 2 and a couple of half items here for himself.
That is a very standard pickup for the side of Abyss. They just want to make sure that they can buff the Tristana as much as possible, keep her nice and healthy and safe as she's doing all of the damage, paired with a little bit of assassination potential that Luch provides just so that she can get her initial assist to get the resets down onto the map. You can see that Abyss have drafted this one from the get-go. They sort of knew that Regicide were going to play a few funny games in Champ Select, and they just called it bluff.
Let's see if Regicide try to force a fight here. ZZ does have his Guardian's Angel, and this is an open inhibitor. So Abyss have to put themselves quite far out across the map to fight for this objective.
It's kind of weird how Abyss are pushing the top side. Although there is an inhibitor available for you, you don't have a Baron buff, so your minions aren't that strong. It can be very easily cleared out by Kedu. Take a look at his Piercing Arrow. It does a whole lot of good work when it comes to these minions. It's on a very low cooldown. And I don't really think that Abyss can get anything unless they want to actually instigate a full-on 5v5 fight.
They back out into the jungle. Raid sticks around for a bit more wave clear, threatening Regicide a bit longer. Luch will collapse into the mid lane to continue pushing that one out. Chunchun's gone back to base. He's got a Locket for himself, so Knight's Vow and Locket will be able to protect Kedu slightly, who's got an Infinity Edge now. So, Faris will be dishing out quite a bit of damage, but still a full item behind Raid at the moment.
Yeah, that is the downside when you build towards the early game and you don't actually manage to get some. You need to furiously try to recompensate with the amount of crit that you can build inside your build. It's extremely punishing for Kedu, but more importantly, it's actually punishing for Regicide, because throughout this entire game, Abyss have been on point with their warding game. They've always pushed it forward when they've had to, and Regicide have had no proper response.
So, Regicide know now. Baron as well as Elder Dragon are coming back up. They have big wave in the bottom lane.
They need to decide.
And top lane is pushing back for themselves. Baron has been started by Abyss. They decide to push through mid lane. So Abyss will get the second Baron of the game. Regicide get another turret for themselves. They're looking to take more. Abyss will use their Empower Recall. They get back to base. They lose an inhibitor turret. Do they lose the inhibitor? Regicide are racing for this one. They're Rift walking in. They're charging towards the fight. And Abyss will pick one. ZZZ gets down really low, but Pabu is going to get taken down first in this fight, it seems. Regicide get one. They charge towards Seb. He's getting locked down as well. ZZZ in the backlines pops his Guardian Angel. Seb somehow gets out. Nunnally, Luch is going to have to back away as well. Still has flash available on this Cassidy. Big binding coming out from Rosie, but Kedu just stands and delivers. More than happy to fight in the creep wave. Oh, big crit from Raid. He jumps in. Silver jumps back out as well. ZZZ wants some good damage, forcing the flash. Raid almost dies to the ultimate coming out of Vladimir. Suddenly, Luch has Rift walked into the fight. Those are so low buzz. Make it 2. Can he get 3? He's trying for it. Kedu's still alive somehow. That's the 3rd. Can he get 4? That's the 4th. That's a pentakill picked up by Luch.
And this is the same Cassidy that actually got a pentakill against Abyss. Now that he turns it around, Shu is on the other foot. He takes down Suman. He takes down the entire team with a Baron buff and so much time on all of these respawn time as Fish. I think that they can potentially end.
That was the last stand coming out from Regicide, and it was damn close as well. They killed Pabu, so close to taking down Seb, but a big teleport play by Luch keeps them in this game. off the back of a pentakill. Second Nexus turret's going to fall. Respawn timers are way too long. Pabu charges up the helicopter just in case, and game 2 goes to Abyss Esports.
And what a dominating game that came out from Abyss, because you saw the early game. It was actually very reminiscent of Regicide, but you know, they hold their cards very close to their chest, and they finally managed to pull out the late game between the Tristana and the Kassadin as well. And of course, you cannot downplay the pentakill that came out against the team that pentakilled them.
And really curious as well, Regicide decided to pick a fight against Abyss in their base, against Baron buff, so far away from the map, instead of trying to contest Baron.
Exactly, they were down on gold, they didn't have the Baron buff, which means that both of those things just accumulated the more damage coming out from Abyss. They managed to pick Pabu as well, and that was the perfect time for them to disengage, but instead, they go even further, and that was really when Abyss just turned on and they said, enough is enough. We got a Kassadin, we got a Tristana. You could see Raid was on a sliver of health, but he still managed to survive, and that was the difference between a won fight and a lost fight.
Luch as well, the big teleport play. Oh my goodness. Luch as well, the big teleport play, is able to clean up that team fight. It's everyone from a Regicide, which is running away on such a low health, but with that, it's now tied up 1-1 between Regicide and Abyss. The next game will decide who stays in the OPL. We're going to go to a 10-minute break. We're back with the final match in just a bit. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I'm about to get into the final match of tonight. Tonight, Abyss take on Regicide in a best of 3. It's currently tied up 1-1, and the winner stays in the OPL. Matt Fisher, joining me is Jimmy Preacher Fu, and we're getting into this game. It's been really weird so far. Game 1 was decisive. Game 2 was weird picks from Regicide all around.
But we kind of assumed that coming in because last time these two teams matched up, we kind of asked the question, will they actually go for the cheesy solo queue picks as they possibly can? But unfortunately, the Fiora coming in actually lost them the game, and now only 1 point separates both of these two teams.
So it does, and that point decides who gets to stay in the OPL next. But the loser of this match is going to be heading into the promotion of relegation tournament. If it is Regicide that lose this game, they'll be going up against Outlaws, and Abyss's sister team that's currently in the OCS will be playing against TM. Whereas if Abyss are the one that loses this game, if Abyss are the one that loses the game, they have to play against Outlaws, and Abyss's sister team will play against TM. If not, it's the other way around. Regicide would have to play against Abyss, and then Outlaws would have to play against TM. And I don't
really think either of these two teams really want to verse Outlaws coming into this, because casting the OCS, watching them do their run not only through the regular round robin, but also through the playoffs and the finals, they looked in fine form. They were the underdogs at the start because we actually thought that they would be around the 3rd place team. I think we placed them in our power rankings, but they just busted all the way to 1st place, only dropping a single game in round robin.
Yeah, and they've done well so far in the OCS. But for now, this game's going to decide who heads back into the OPL, so there's a lot at stake, and we're in Champion Select for game number 3. Again, same sides. Regicide will be starting on blue side. We'll have Abyss on the red side of Summoner's Rift, and I'd expect Abyss to change their bans once again for God knows why.
Yes, thank you very much, because that's actually what I wanted to talk about. I think that Abyss should change their bans much more than their picks, because any person can just say, this is my favorite pick, this is really what suits the situation, pick it for me right now. But it's really the banning phase that we brought in a lot of questions for them. They banned away a lot of irrelevant picks, especially the ADC pull, which then defaulted into a Varus for Kedu. It was all very weird altogether.
It certainly was. And already they've changed up their bans again. We've got a Renekton coming out. Baron's going to join us on the desk as well. He was the decisive factor for Abyss in that game. Gave them the empowered recall.
Yeah, he came back for round 2, and he really showed in fine form why Abyss's objective control was what brought them into victory.
Yeah, old mate Batsa was able to help them out, but already a change in bans coming out from Regicide as well. They take away Tristana in this match.
I think that that's very duly needed, because the Tristana was just such a huge proponent of the game. The silent hero coming in, it was pretty much 5-1 and 3. We were just scratching our heads wondering, where did he get that kill? Well, all of a sudden, we don't have to ask that question anymore.
But Abyss do stick to the same bans as they did in game number 2, with Zaya Braum taken away later on. Ramton still taken away from ZZZ. He had a really good match in game number 1 on that champion.
Yeah. Course, naturally banning away pretty much anything that you possibly can from ZZZ, but you got to imagine that until ZZZ picks his champion, Abyss should probably hold off their top lane pick against Pabu, because Pabu needs the counter pick.
And that's a first pick Cassidy coming out from Regicide. So they're giving that one over towards Sealbird. Whoever's had Cassidy has won so far. In this best of 3 series. Luch had a pentakill in the last game.
Yep, that was absolutely bonkers coming into the very last game. We didn't expect it, because Luch was one of those players who we hyped up for the longest time, and he didn't quite meet expectations. Now coming into this game, he got a pentakill. He's met my expectation, but he needs to perform consistently now if he wants to get his name into the Hall of Greats.
But same first pick coming out for Abyss here as they pick up Jarvan. That should be Seb's champion once again. Let's see what they decide to pick up now, because Tristana was their last pick last time round, but instead they go for Kalista.
Yeah, they opt to go for the Kalista. I don't really think that Kalista's the same caliber as Tristana. Sure, it's a late game carry that has a little bit of early game potential, but overall, it's not the oomph that you get from Tristana. When combined between her Q for the extra attack speed and also her E for the extra damage, neither of those two come out for Kalista. However, if they decide to make it into late game, it is still something they can play around, especially with the Jarvan lockdown on the other side.
Let's see what Rosie decides to pick up for his support to pair up with the Kalista by Raid. That's Rek'Sai coming back into the OPL for Yele here.
Yeah, we haven't seen too much Rek'Sai, however, it is still a very strong pickup in the current meta. I think it's the one of the 2 counters to traditional Cinder Hulk tanks, because you can pretty much exploit the early game, the other one being Elise, of course. So now with the Rek'Sai being picked up at the current moment, they're looking towards the early game.
I mean, we saw Rek'Sai play by SOFM in the LPL last night. Not to great success, but he did play it.
Yeah, I mean, he tried to do the best that he could. I was trying to analyze the pick as best as I possibly could, but honestly, I couldn't. I think that coming into pretty much the OPL, the OCS promotions, he should have more breadth of room in order to hyper carry his team.
And this time we see Luch pick up the Lucian straight away against the Kassadin into Sealman. Sealman, early on into game 1, didn't do too well. Had to buy 3 cloth armors and a plethora of defensive items to survive that lane. Luch was 30 CS up and a kill up as well, but a big gank in the mid lane turned that around for Sealman.
Yeah, and I was just about to say that Sealman still managed to come out ahead in that matchup regardless. So all in all, you know, if you build towards what you need to, it kind of looks like Kassadin can be that champion who is very comfortable in making it to the late game. It also really suits Sealman's playstyle, being an assassin, but now you got to assume that on the side of Abyss, they have to ban out the top lane champion pool. Not too sure Nara is a good champion because I haven't seen ZZZ play too much of it, but they definitely need to get it off.
Jax, however, is a good ban going out towards ZZZ. He's played that champion quite a few times.
Get all of the fun. I don't get anything over here.
Oh,
I can't even put on this helmet.
We can even out the desk. Don't worry. We've got.
You gave me Teemo?
Captain Teemo, you know.
It's Panda Teemo. It's not even the. Oh.
It's not even the good skin.
No, I'm done. I'm done here. I get absolutely no love when I come onto this desk with you, Fish.
The trick is there is no good Teemo skin.
There we go.
That's the way to play him. Just don't. Cho'Gath does get locked in here for Abyss, so Pava will play that top side. That makes sense as to why they're banning out top lane champions now. Thresh was the final ban from Regicide with Janna first up, so they're targeting Rosie's champion pool here, it seems.
And I'm actually really worried for Regicide because now there are just so many bans that have already come through from both Abyss and Regicide against the top lane. Regicide have banned away the Gragas and the Maokai, both which can be flexed onto the top side of the map. And now with everything else being denied away, I don't even know what they can pick up there, in all honesty. That's still top tier.
Well, final pick from Regicide is Ashe for Kedu. He played that in game number 1. He'll be paired up with Chen Chen on his Alistar. He is one-trick champion that he was known for in solo queue before joining the OPL. Final pick for them should be ZZZ's top lane of choice, unless he does something fancy like flex the Kassadin up there.
I don't really think it has a great pickup, but...
It's going to be Riven, locked in for ZZZ, the second time in the OPL.
Wow. This is it. Last time they picked up the Riven, it's because they dominated the game previously. They came into this game with such high morale, but now when everything is on the line, when the stakes can literally not be higher, it is between you making it back into OPL or you going through the gruesome task of playing through the promotion series. They trust him to carry.
Well, we'll have to see how he does here. Trundle is the final pickup here for Abyss. That's an ardent sense of support. Don't let him fool you. He has lots of ways to allow his team to proc that.
Of course.
Double 80 carry this time round. Yeah,
all you need to do is go for the Stoneball. Once again, your Chomp puts a slow onto the enemy. Bam! All of a sudden, you got Ardent Sensor. Your Pillar puts a slow onto the enemy. Bam! Another Ardent Sensor. So all in all, it's not actually the worst matchup in the world. I think the only big problem that we've had is there have been a lot of proponents for Relic Shield Trundle, because a lot of people have actually said you simply need the sustain in lane and it doesn't work towards your favor any other way.
Well, let's see how that one pans out in the bottom lane. I'm really curious to see how ZZ does against Pavu, because game 1, he picked up a couple of solo kills in the Renekton against Gnar matchup, which is normally favored for the Gnar. This time he's on Riven. Cho'Gath's difficult to deal with. Every minion wave he kills, he gets 180 health back, I believe, and that's more than a health potion, so difficult.
That is super punishing. One of the things that does go towards Riven is that you can always go for the Death's Dance, which gives you some regen as well whenever you use pretty much any of your abilities going up against a Cho'Gath. However, that means that you'll have to deny your Black Cleaver first pickup, which is always really punishing for Riven. Another huge thing that might be extremely punishing for Riven is Cho'Gath's level 6. Once both of these two champs get level 6, Cho is just instant true damage.
Yep, silence from Cho'Gath also mucks up Riven's day. She doesn't enjoy being silenced, so she can't hop, skip, and jump around the map. But very curious to see how ZZ is going to play this matchup. It's his signature champion. It has been for so many years, and we're going to get to see it once again.
Yeah, but it's a very tough one because Cho just has so many debilitating abilities between the between the silence, between the slow, between the knock-up. If ZZZ manages to path around all of them, then he'll find great success. If he doesn't, and if he gets hit by any of the Venn diagrams of Doom, might not be so easy.
But the problem I see again heading into this game is Abyss once again have picked up the Lucian. which despite the fact they lost game 1 and Luch was not able to do much in the late game, it still shut down Suman quite heavily on this Cassidy pick, and not too much has changed. Now they have a Rek'Sai in the jungle, maybe can impact a little bit more than the Sejuani.
You see, here's the deal with the Lucian, all right? Because in the very first game, I said, this is great. This gives Luch a whole lot of room to actually grow as a player, to start playing more towards the early game and less towards very defensive late game hyper carries or the late game scalers that he used to do. Like, for instance, a hyper farming Orianna who never really did anything except get about 400 CS by 30 minutes. Great. Lucian's a nice addition to this. However, it looked really rocky in the very first game, and I'm not too sure that he had too much to change between that and then.
Yeah, because Cassidy looked a lot better in game number 2. Like, he picked up a pentakill, he was able to do well against Human in the early laning phase. He was playing Vladimir for God knows why.
Yeah, I mean, that matchup was very easy for Cassidy to start with, so he also had that going for him. But all in all, it just gave him so much potency going into the late game if he didn't get bullied in the early. And I think that that's one of the reasons why they're picking Lucian, in order to give him a very safe bridging tool coming into the mid to late game, which he is always renowned to do so. But then again, you know, it's always losing out the power that Lucian innately brings early.
But another thing we have to remember is, despite the fact that Abyss picked up game number 2 there, it was not a one-sided affair. Game 1 was one-sided for Regicide. Game 2 looked like Regicide could take it at any point in time, despite their split push composition falling apart.
Yeah, and it comes down to the calls that Regicide really made, because pretty much when there were team fights going on, they said, nope, we trust in ZZZ, keep on split pushing on Fiora. When there was a Baron being taken, nope, ZZZ, keep on pushing. When they're pushing into your base with a Baron, keep on pushing, dude. And I think that that's one of the problems that they had. They put way too much faith into the ZZZ basket, into split pushing, and it just didn't work out for them when there's something like a Baron to account for. So for this game, Riven, a more team fighty champion than Fiora at the very least, you have to assume that he should be coming to the team.
Yep, and they've got Rek'Sai as well, which is a ganking jungler, does well whenever you have a Riven in the top lane. So curious to see how he does against Palmer. Palmer really needs to step up. He had a good Poppy game, a very poor Gnar match in the first game. So he has to do something as he's topside this game.
Yeah, and I actually think that the Rek'Sai is really good in the context of Regicide as a whole team, because one of the things that's lacking from this team is vision control. They don't really know what's happening on the other side of the map. We're usually praising Abyss a lot for their vision control in the early to mid game, because they push it really tactically, they push it as far as they possibly can, and they renew it whenever it's about to go out. Over on the other side, Regicide, they don't really do that as well, but there's Rek'Sai coming in with the ghetto vision from her tremor sensors. It should be enough to hold up that little problem.
And the bottom lane's been changed as well. Abyss did get Tristana banned out against them, so they picked up Kalista in this game. A little bit less hyperscaling, so to speak. Still does well in the late game, but has a lot more utility for the Abyss line, especially with a Trundle support.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much this is just the same in Tristana if you want to account for the rocket jump, getting multiple resets. However, it's just for the mobility. So while Kalista is late game, it's not the damage. Somebody else needs to take over, like, for instance, Luch.
Well, now we're into the final match between Regicide as well as Abyss. Currently tied up 1-1. And a lot of things have changed going into this Champion Select.
Yeah, a lot of things, especially in the jungle position. Not so much for Seb, but at the very least for Yele. Let's have an actual chat about Seb's Java, because he's picked it up 3 games in a row now. And that is a real big surprise, because at the very least, when you take a look at his early game appearance on the map, sure, he can push into the enemy jungle, but when he comes into the lanes, it looks a little bit awkward. And I want to turn your mind back to the very first few minutes of the last game, how he tried to gank mid lane Suman. We were questioning the Vladimir a lot. We were saying it's not going to have a lot of power, but the one strength it has is that it can't be ganked.
Certainly can't. Let's see how Seb does again in this game, because Jarvan, as you mentioned, 3 times in a row, not a champion we're used to Seb picking up. I mean, especially with the likes of Zac, Elise left open, his signature champion. Abyss have shied away from those picks.
Yeah, and even stranger than that, he's actually opted to go 3 times in a row for the Thunderlords, which means that he wants to make a whole lot of early game appearances, despite the fact that he didn't do so in the previous games. All of that brings up a whole lot of questions, but speaking about 3 times in a row, you cannot ignore Mr. Chen Chuan on the Alistar, 3rd time again. He just wants to be able to play his comfort champions. He doesn't want to have any messy fingers coming into this game.
He was crucial to the success of Regicide in game number 1. Still looked good in game number 2. 3 games in a row picking up his comfort champion. Let's see how he does. We'll have Yele starting on blue buff. Seb will do the exact same thing on Jarvan, slightly faster in the clear there.
And it's actually really strange because they call ZZZ down to give a leash onto Yele. This is not something that Rivens are really known to do because they need to get that early game presence down in their lane from the get-go. But because Rivens a little bit too late, Pabu gets to set up the lane. It means that if he started E, which I assume Cho'Gath top lane does like to start, then he can set up the wave a whole lot easier for himself. And this is naturally going to be pushing towards Regicide.
Yep, let's see how that top lane goes. ZZ did pick up a long sword as well as refillable potion, so he expects to be going back to base a couple of times. In the bottom lane, Abyss sack the lane for the first couple of levels. Raid did get locked down by the Pulverize coming out from Chen Shen, and he was forced back into the range of his turret, so Regicide will tick level 2 first. Seb, still top side of the map, has his double buffs now, working on a Scuttle Crowd to give some vision for his team. Mid lane, Luch bullying out Suman as we'd expect. 16 CS to 8, a big wave for Suman to collect as it crashes onto this turret.
Yep. And naturally, you've got to take a look at what Seb is trying to impact on the jungle, because he just took out the Blast Cone in order to secure his own safety should ZZZ collapse, and now he is at the very least looking in the enemy jungle, looking to get down some vision, not so much to deny away some camps. That's really smart going into Yele, who he already knew must be on the bottom side of the map because of the Riven Leash. However, Yele just gets one up on him. He gets the vision and the Grom.
Yeah, he's moving towards Grom camp. We'll be able to take that down for himself. Checking in with the top side of the map. That is a lovely Riven skin to watch. Haven't seen that in competitive play for a while.
See, this is the downside of Dawnbringer Riven, because when they released it, when I watched the skin in action, I thought this is going to be so awesome, and then I immediately remembered, what's the point of all these beautiful animations if they're all going to be cancelled?
That's a fair point.
Yeah.
But so far the matchup is going in Pabu's favor. He's pushing in to ZZZ. There's a teleport coming into mid lane, and Seb is there for the flag and drag. Gets Human down to half health. That's exactly what you'd like. Meanwhile, Pabu's in some trouble. ZZ gets a good trade. He's not level 6, so doesn't have the big nuke that comes out from Feast. Flash forward from ZZ, stuns him up. Looking for the knockup, dashes out of it. No mana on Pabu, gets the knockup, and first blood's picked up by ZZZ.
You knew it was going to go one way or the other, but ZZZ trusted his Riven. Take a look at him. He was literally on 1-digit HP after the minion hit him, but he still managed to come out ahead.
Styled on. The man with the toothbrush gets knocked down again. Meanwhile, bottom lane, Raid's in trouble. Deja Vu Abyss across the map. Regicide get kills.
Because of the pressure that happened on the top side, they decide to move all the way into bot. There was a gank in mid, and great, it got Suman down to half HP, but the downside is that Seb shows himself there, gives free access for Yele to go into the bot side, pick up a kill.
So they will march this mini wave on towards the turret, and Raid is going to lose most, if not all of it. ZZ even teleports towards the top side of the map to go up against Pablo again. He's picked up double cloth armor for himself. Phage and Ruby Crystal have been picked up by ZZZ. Dodging both the ruptures from Cho'Gath, saving him top side of the map in that fight.
Yep, he dodged pretty much everything available. Unfortunately got hit by the silence, but it doesn't matter because in the early game, Riven actually does have cooldowns, believe it or not. So weaving in between all of those, getting the auto attacks, cancelling the auto attacks in order to dodge all of the Venn diagrams, just gets the kill down onto Pabu.
Yeah, the master Riven player himself doing well top side of the map. Suman still doing fine against Luch. We do expect Lucian to be ahead at this point of the game.
Yep, not only because of the matchup, but also because of the early gank that Seb provided. But Suman is never the focal point of Regicide before 20 minutes. It's never him carrying the rest of his team. It's usually him trying to get as much resources as his team will deem worthy of this Cassidy getting in the early game. And that's not the worst case scenario for him, because that's the way that he wants to play. He's more than happy to farm this lane out, lose a little bit of CS against Lucian, not a problem.
And he's gone back to base early already. He's going to try and get a cheeky recall in soon, but this wave is pushing in quite nicely for Luch at the moment. More trades top side of the map. Pabu, as you can see, he's still happy to trade against ZZZ. Cho'Gath has a good laning phase.
Yeah, and he is 6, but ZZZ is not. However, this could be a bait because Yele's coming up.
Yeah, he's jumping on towards Pabu. He does not have flash. Yele not close enough. We'll get the knock up. There's the stun. The ultimate comes out from ZZZ, and good night, Pabu. Deja vu to game 1. Dies twice in the top lane to ZZZ.
That was exactly it. And ZZZ using his experience bar perfectly, baiting in Pabu because there is the feast as opposed to no Riven ultimate. Now, finally, Yele comes in and just settles the score.
To make matters worse, Abyss do not have the early game advantage they had in the mid lane like they did in game number 1. On top of that, Roadside's bottom lane are ahead of Abyss's bottom lane at the moment. You can see Raid posturing quite aggressively here.
Oh.
Java will come in. Great pillar. Can Kedu flash out of this one? Gets over the wall, but too many sticks have been put into the Ashe. And they'll get a return kill in the bottom lane.
Yeah, and that's the downside of playing this Ashe with not a whole lot of jungle pressure. The fact that Ashe doesn't do too much damage innately at the start of the game, also has no dash or fast way to get out to safety. When you get ganked by a Jarvan and also get pillared into a wall by Trundle, there's not a whole lot you can do even if you flash.
I mean, Kedu did a good job of avoiding both the pillar, you know, trying to flash over the thick part of the wall, and did so.
Yeah, he did it.
You need to be a lot quicker if you want to avoid all that damage that comes out from Raid, and was not able to do so. Good gank coming out from Abyss. Now they'll equalize in the bottom lane, mid lane still in their favor. So across the board, it's even between the two teams, but Rediside do hold on to a 1,000 gold lead.
Yeah, and the real big question coming in now is what will Seb do with his jungle? He has finally pulled off a very successful gank early on, but he's getting invaded on by Yellow.
I'd like a blue buff, please. Oh, Seb still takes it, not on my watch.
Okay. All right, that was very tricky of him. Finally manages to get that. Ooh,
big solo kill in the mid lane. Luch is able to take down Suman, and just as I talk about how they don't have the advantages they had in game one, Abyss pull it back in the bottom lane, in the mid lane, and start on in the jungle as well.
Yeah, that is so weird. Luch coming off of a massive high simply because he got a pentakill off of that Kassadin game last game. Now he actually 1v1 Suman, and you got to imagine, while Lucian does have the power, especially in the early game against a Kassadin, Suman should know better than to take that fight.
Yeah, he's gone for the amplifying tone very early as well.
Here we
Here's
go.
that fight against Luch. Ignite goes down, flash and everything. That's just an easy pickup for Luch.
Yeah, and they actually trade flashes as well, which means that while Luch doesn't have his, Suman doesn't have his either. Now that sets up Seb very nicely to gank the mid lane, but you always got to play around the Rift Walk.
Yeah, 45 CS to 78 in favor of Luch. Last time, the way they got back into this was through a good gank from Chen Shuan on an overextended Luch with the help of Yele. Seb's making his return into the bottom lane. Good pillar again. There's no flash veil for Kedu. And great use of the flag drag flash combo from Seb as well. Knocks him up. Game is now dead even.
Round two. First, it was from the river. This time, it's from the lane. But Seb makes his presence known in the bottom lane. And when you combine the amount of CC coming between a Trundle and also a Jarvan, he's going even further ahead. He dodged
Teleport.
it.
Here comes ZZZ. Once again into the bottom lane. Seb getting a lockdown. No flash available for this Jarvan. Suman even joins the fight as well. He gets the double buff. He gets a kill as well.
Okay, so that was just a little bit too aggressive from Seb. When he got a little, he pushed for a little bit too much. Teleport comes down from ZZZ, and also Suman manages to get that return kill down onto Seb in the bottom lane. That's something that they desperately needed on the side of Regicide in order to snowball their composition. Because if you take a look at everybody involved, you need to get Ashe unlocked from the bottom lane so that she can actually start using her arrows to maximum potency in other lanes.
Suman wants to fight against Luch, and here comes the Alistar himself. Locks down Luch. He's in trouble. ZZZ's here for good measure as well. Pops the ultimate on top of that. That's exactly what happened in game one, and deja vu again.
Yeah, it's identical. Luch is just playing way too far up without any wards in either of his two bushes to either side of the mid lane. Oh,
Kedu just gets destroyed in the bottom lane. Raid and Rosie take advantage of the fact that Chen Shuan wasn't there.
Just duo killed Kedu. Pretty much no interference there. Chen Shuan was too busy in the mid lane making plays. He trades 1-for-1 for his team if you want to consider his roaming as the big instigator of that.
Yep, but big kill onto Kassadin, traded for the kill onto Raid. Raid is ramping up quite nicely, 3-1-0. Ashe 20 CS behind, as well as a couple of kills, means this lane should be firmly in control of Abyss. ZZZ, however, is going to get some good damage on this top lane outer turret as Shogarth slowly makes his way back into the lane.
And the worst thing is, if Pablo comes in from the bottom side of this map, there could even be a chance for ZZZ to return trade. He takes a very smart route of not fighting under the turret because you could just be infinitely locked down by Cho'Gath, but still, it's a very tough situation for Pablo.
Yeah, it's a Black Cleaver already picked up with ZZZ as well. Pablo does have Ninja Tabby as well as the Glacial Shroud, so he will be able to take up quite a bit of damage from ZZZ, but over time, he'll be able to shred through that.
Yep, because he has percentage damage of his own. Unfortunately, did get nerfed a couple of patches ago from 4% to 3%.
Thank goodness! It still needs to be nerfed.
Yeah, I mean, the only real thing that it nerfed was the jungle Cho'Gath, because it means you need to do one more order onto camps. Oh no, the shock and horror of that. But still, The percentage damage is way too high. Here's the fight.
Luch wants to go for a fight mid lane. Yele
Wait
flashing in, but he's not close enough. Just denies a lot of the damage from the Cully. Meanwhile, Chen has so many sticks inside of this Alistar. Raid still going forward. Rips him out. Not enough to kill him.
Yeah, and Chen has to flash out of the Cataclysm that was put down by Sepp. He's not even camping. He's pretty much laying down the foundations for a hotel in bottom lane because he is just living here at this current moment. And it doesn't even matter if he doesn't get the kills down onto the side of Regicide because they want to get chip damage down onto the turret.
Yeah, playing a long game Monopoly. Good double knockout coming out from Chen. Doesn't get the stun, but a big pillar comes out from Rosie. Stops the engage from Yele.
Yeah, pretty much Yele tried to come in, but it was stopped because the pillar just completely removed the Rek'Sai from the equation. It's effectively still a 2v2. Alistar was very low from the other fight, and he just gets taken down.
5 kills to 5 scorers dead even. Pabu, however, in some trouble here. ZZ collapses on top of him. Rupture misses again. Good knock up from the Riven. Pabu at half health. Here comes Luch trying to help out. Ultimate is available for ZZ. Pops it. Will go straight on top of Luch. He wants him. Gonna take him down. Goes on a killing spree. And Pabu can't get there in time. Forced to flash for the shutdown. But Sealman's hunting for this Cho'Gath. He wants him. Stops the recall but trades 1 for 1.
And take a look at that. That is a Riven main through and through. When you are being collapsed down upon by a Cho'Gath and a Lucian, do you back out? Nah. You go whole ham. You go right into the Lucian and you try to burst him down. What am I even talking about? It wasn't a try, he did.
Now with that, ZZ, when he respawns, we've got to pick up a couple more items. Boots is his choice. Already has the Tiamat as well as the Black Cleaver. Righteous Glory has been picked up by Pablo, but here's that again. He just turns on the Luch, and that's good night.
Yeah, he makes the choice to go in as opposed to out because he also knows that Suman's around. Look at that dash. It keeps him alive for so long. It's unfortunate that he actually kites back towards Abyss's side as opposed to towards Regicide's side because that could have actually set up Suman for potentially a 2-for-1 trade.
Does give Pabu the shutdown. He's now going to be close to the amount of gold that ZZ has picked up himself, but the real threat is going to be Raid. Currently sitting on 4 kills. Blade of the Ruin King already complete. In fact, him and Luch both have that item picked up.
This is just very standard Raid because pretty much we always say he's going to be a dark horse. We're not going to notice how he gets to the late game until he gets to the late game. He's already 4-1. He's making really quick work of that one. If you take a look at his items, Blade of the Ruin King, Berserker's Greaves, he is ready to fight. All he needs is a Rune Ends now for team fighting.
So again, Regicide, similar to game number 2. They've got this game dead even. They've been fighting quite a bit, but they do have the split push team composition in this match. Pabu is still holding on to his feast in the top lane, not using it on any of the minions so far.
Yep. He just wants to hold on to it as soon as he can, but he should realistically use it on minions because it's the most optimal way to stack your ultimate, get your health up so that ZZZ can't necessarily rip through it. With your Ninja Tabi, it just synergizes very well, but he holds on to it.
Holds on to it, wants to keep it in case ZZZ goes for a risky trade. Seb makes his presence felt in the bottom lane. Double teleport is available, so Abyss have to respect that.
And that is always the advantage of drafting the Kassadin, because Kassadin doesn't really go any other summoner spell. He usually always goes teleport, which just adds so much pressure onto your team, especially come the mid to late game, but especially in the early game. When Seb is focusing down on the bottom side, you can most certainly threaten with a double TP.
I don't think a single one of these Ruptures has actually hit ZZZ just yet, but he's at half health. And it's about a quarter of ZZZ's health to where Pabu can start to get the chomp down onto Riven, who is currently farming in between turrets.
Yeah, that's just a little bit ridiculous. He is just trying to stall all over Pabu.
Righteous Glory slows him down. Pabu wants this fight. Still has quite a bit of mana. Feast is available. Jumps over the wall. Pabu still wants to chase. Luch is cutting up the river to see if he can cut him out. There's the Rupture that needed to hit. Slowed down. Can he get the chomp? He can't quite. But Luch is cutting around in between the turrets. There's a big brawl bottom lane though. Yele's going to come through. There's an arrow coming out as well. Pabu noms onto ZZZ and gets that kill. Yele, however, he's going to take it down.
Coming in.
Seb's in some trouble, but Suman is looking for the Rift Walk. Gets on top of the Jarvan, flushes out. Juke's left, goes right. A big knockout from Chen, and Raid will get stunned by the Moo Cow himself. Shut down by Suman.
And that was old Chen Chuan going in, getting the headbutt pulverized combination onto everybody on the bot side of Abyss. Turned it around, forced Suman's teleport to pick up the remaining kills on bot. So now kills are even for both of them after the trading happened in top side as well. But both of the top and mid turrets are getting pushed down by Abyss.
Yep, Luch looking to try and take down mid lane out of turret. He might die for this one. Suman collapses. Ignite has been burnt, but one more Rift Walk should sell his demise. Flashes forward. Would he get the sword into him? Who's going to die here? Luch gets the shutdown, and he will take down Suman in the mid lane.
Woo! The red buff transferring onto him. Make sure that the red buff on him doesn't take him down to death. So that was way too close. He was quite literally playing with fire. But he survives.
Gets the turret, gets the solo kill, has a nice dinner going back to base as well. ZZZ will get the consolation prize of top lane outer turret, and the gold is slightly in favor of Abyss. 500 gold up.
That's what happens when you get the first structure bonus. You get the extra gold available for your team. But even more importantly than that, it's the mid lane that you took down. And this is really punishing for Regicide because Abyss... Wait a minute.
Flashing on top of Luch, getting him down quite low, but Luch does have the sustained damage. There's the ultimate, jumps back at him, takes him down one-on-one. Yele, what a beast.
Not too sure what Luch was doing there. He was actually in the side of Regicide's jungle, gets collapsed on by Yele, and Yele just 1v1s him. That's the power of Rek'Sai coming in so early. But what I was about to say is, before he died, if they manage to take down the mid turret, it just gives us so much pressure everywhere else on the map.
But second turret does fall for Abyss naturally in the bottom lane. Rosie and Raid can take that down.
Yep. And that's just the pressure that they accumulated from getting it down mid, because pretty much you know at this point that Yele can't really gank bot, he can't really defend this, and they're going to transfer it even further from bot into something higher up, a dragon.
But Regicide make the right call. They go towards Rift Herald while Luch is dead and the rest of the team work on the Elemental Dragon. That's at half health. He should be able to be taken away. Suman's here for good measure too. So we'll have a turret in their back pocket. Gold is still fairly even between the two teams, about 900 in Abyss's favor.
Yep, so now what Abyss need to do is they need to be really smart when it comes to how they assign their lanes. Best case scenario for them is they can instigate a 1-4 split push because they don't have teleport on Luch. He has neither of his two summoners, so he can't particularly 1v1 Suman either. It's going to be a really risky situation either way. They need to make sure that they don't completely get out-pushed by the side of Regicide, who, while both of their TPs are down, still do have the TPs.
It's been a very bloody game so far, almost a kill a minute, but the action should slow down for the next few minutes as both teams try to take stock of the situation. Big item pickups for ZZZ though. He has his Black Cleaver as well as Ravenous Hydra, so he can split push forever now if he'd like.
It's a little bit strange that he didn't go for the Death Stance. It heals you on your abilities as well as your auto attacks. But, you know, to each his own as Raid gets collapsed on.
Yeah, he's popped his heal very early. He didn't get any health back from it. Flashes out as well. Good cataclysm from Seb. And Pabu joins in. That's going to be a dead Rek'Sai's Raid. Rips the sticks out. Rosie's on top of Suman. He can't Rift Walk away just yet. We'll get a double kill in the top lane. And mid lane, there's more. Kedu's getting a culling to the face. And across the map, Abyss dominate Regicide.
We expected that in the top lane, Fish, because that is just a very standard Abyss assignment. They moved everybody onto the top side as a Baron spawns. This is way too hard to deal with. However, the one reprieve is that there is a Herald on the side of Regicide.
Yeah, they just gave a couple of missing things to Pabu there, who ruptured absolutely nothing. So, Feast available for the choke off as well as the sticks from Callista. Means this Baron's going to fall down. Yep. Nice and easy, 20 minutes in, and now Abyss have firm control of this match, and it's in their hands to put themselves back in the OPL.
Yep, you give them a little, and they take the whole map, Fish, because you got to take a look at the way that they actually started that all off. They moved 4 members onto the top side because they knew that they couldn't 1-3-1 split push with the 2 teleports available on Regicide. They take down 2 members, and in the mid lane, it was a 1v1. Luch, no summoners, just the culling. He takes down Suman.
And as much as ZZZ's Riven is fun to watch, and his Fiora was too, I feel like not being on a team fighting champion is the difference between game 1 and the next 2. He kills Luch there.
Okay.
No. I mean,
that's not too bad. When you get to find some squishiness, then it's all right for you. But the downside of picking this Riven, especially when you have a Rek'Sai in your team composition as well, is that you are leaning very heavily towards damage, specifically AD. The only real tank that you have until you get to the very, very late game is Chen Xuan. Because you take a look at the way that Yele is building, he's going towards his Titanic Hydra. While it does give HP, not a whole lot of other tank stats.
So Regicide still split pushing with Suman top side, ZZZ in the bottom lane, relying on this 1-3-1 of sorts. Very little disengage for them in the mid lane in case they get into any form of trouble. Well, let's see how they pan out here? BF Sword picked up by ZZ. He's going towards his Guardian Angel. Yele as well as Sealman will split push top side of the map. Rift Herald has been summoned against the Baron buff too.
Yeah. This is a bit strange because I'm not too certain that it can do a whole lot of damage. It will get the charge off, but that's pretty much it. Going in.
So it gets it down to half health. Gets a purple claw slap, but that's about it. So they use the Rift Herald as it times out to chip away at turrets. Not the worst usage, but don't get anything out of it.
That was actually 2/3 of his HP. It was about a third more than I actually expected. But that was one of the things that they had to do because they got the Rift Herald. They tried to use the advantage. I was about to actually say, as they got the Rift Herald, that with them getting it so close to the Baron coming up, they could have pressured the situation. But they lost a team fight, and it's all very quick calls that came out from Abyss.
It certainly is. So, as things stand, Abyss 3,000 gold up with Baron buff at the moment. Unfortunately, we're going to a pause as ZZ seems to have dropped out of the game. Not great to play League of Legends 4-on-5.
Nope. Especially not with a Riven who has a whole lot of your kills in your team, getting a whole lot of solo kills down onto the enemy, all of a sudden leaves, you're going to feel a little bit bad.
I'll hopefully be able to get back into the game as soon as possible. Abyss currently in control, 3,000 gold up. Is this enough for them to push for the victory, or do they need to wait for more time?
So push for victory, most definitely not. It's too early in the game. While they do have a Baron buff, you know, there are a whole lot of structures standing for the side of Regicide, but they can push for a whole lot. And I'm talking about best case scenario, an inhibitor down all the way from inner turrets. So that's going to be absolutely massive coming down from the side of Abyss. That's one of the conditions that they can play towards. Yep. But like we said, with both teleports coming up for the top lane and mid lane of Regicide respectively, you got to imagine they've got to play it really safe, because if they don't force a fight and they just keep on pushing endless waves into Regicide, Regicide can eventually split push them.
They certainly can. They already have Sealman split pushing top side of the map on the Kassadin, who has had a much different game against Luch. Almost every time he's gone into the one-on-one, and Luch has come out ahead.
Yeah, I mean, this is just a natural matchup of the Lucian into a Kassadin. The one reason why I really question it at the start is because it was so close the one time that they actually 1v1 at the start. How pretty much the red buff was the deciding factor between who lives and who dies in that whole situation. However, even more than that, it was just the fact that Luch managed to come out so definitively ahead that just snowballed him further.
Yeah, so Luch, on the Lucian performing a lot better this time round. He does not have teleport, but could try and match the split push potential. ZZZ, though, it almost seems like nobody from the side of Abyss can go up against this Riven at the current time. But you look at the three part of their team composition, Chun as well as Ashe, they're down really far behind their up counterparts of Raid and Rosie, and even the jungler, Yangle, is not having the best of games on the Rex side.
It kind of looks like a mismatch when it comes to the three composition, because of course the Ashe always has a utility, but because she's so far behind, she doesn't provide damage. Not to worry, all of a sudden Rek'Sai provides some damage, but then there's not a whole lot of tankiness, and then you just got an Alistar jumping in as well. Yeah, it's a mismatch of all sorts. I kind of worry for Regicide, because while you could see what happened, you know, the cogs turning in Vicarious's head as he drafted out this this pick and ban phase, it's a little bit too difficult to execute if they fall behind like they did.
And still, again, very curious as to why Vicarious didn't go towards a team fighting team comp again. Maybe it's because they only want to do it with Renekton being picked up as one of ZZ's signature champions, but 2 games now, gone to the Fiora as well as the Riven. Doesn't seem like it's working out as well as game 1 as they did against Abyss.
Well, it's still working out in the sense that Riven's doing what she needs to do, which is pick out the squishies of the side of Abyss where they can. She just took down Luch, as we saw in the 1v1. That was very well done for him, but he needs to continue doing that, or at the very least put down pressure and make them think that he can do that. Because if he doesn't do that and he enters a team fight with a Ravenous Hydra as well as a Black Cleaver, he's not going to be living for too long.
Whereas for the side of Abyss, they've drafted a really good team comp for themselves. Yes, Sparby died solo top side of the map and got ganked as well, but we can see how Cho'Gath now can just clear out waves and sustain all he wants. Has the Righteous Glory, has the Chomp available, and with the Cho'Gath as well as Callista pick, they're able to secure a 20-minute Baron for themselves.
Yeah, that was absolutely ridiculous with the objective taking control that we actually do have on this team as we come into the game once again. They just managed to secure what is the earliest Baron that we've ever seen in OPL, I believe.
Yeah, and Pabu's gone back to base and picked up a Warmogs for himself. So that's a very tanky Cho'Gath. His ultimate's going to deal a lot of damage. You'd expect the Gargoyle Stone Plate to come out next for some resistances, as well as stacking up his health even more with the passive. But with Baron buff, Abyss now march down top lane. Top lane in is going to fall. ZZZ's trying to do what he can at the bottom lane. I feel like I've seen this one before, Preacher.
And it's just a very textbook 1-4 coming out from Abyss, because they're using the 4 component. Teleport available for Pabu. Here's the engage. I don't think Chenchuan wants this.
They get Luch low. Seb jumps in and takes a few turret shots. So Chenchuan gets some value out of that.
Righteous.
Teleport. What's happening? I've seen this before. Finally, Seb actually survives that one, but last time around he was going to die. Pillar comes out. ZZ's still chasing.
Yeah, this is super dangerous for ZZZ because he can get into there, but then he'll die really quick. So he needs to be careful how he navigates this.
He jumps over the blast cone. The rest of the team
not
far behind him. Now ZZ is a dead man walking. Luch will pile on in. Stun doesn't go through, and he's gone.
That was the question that I was just asking. You know for certain that when you're building 2 damage items with a BF sword as well for your 3rd GA, what are you doing? You go straight into the middle of the enemy team. Rest of your team isn't catching up. And then they just died. He just absolutely runs into 5 members, and that's what you expect.
I don't understand. This is exactly... all these games look very similar. That teleport play was exactly the same as game number 2. This time, Seb almost gets caught.
Yep.
Not quite. Now they move towards the next elemental dragon of the game. It's going to spawn in 5 seconds. Second mountain for the team of Abyss.
Yeah, you see Abyss is just rewriting the book, Fish, because what happens in the top side, they say, nope, we're not going to get picked. We're instead going to pick you over. ZZZ dies. It gets so much, and now they even get a dragon for their efforts. But what you need to look out for right now is the fact that with 2 mountain drakes on the side of Abyss, Regicide, they're already having a tough time dealing with sieging. It's just going to be even harder.
So look at the goal, 2,000 in favor of ZZZ, but that's where it kind of stops. The LA, yes, is even with Seb, but mid lane, 2,000 in favor of Luch. Bottom lane, 3,200 in favor of Raid, and even the support Rosie about 1,200 ahead of his counterpart Strength. So bottom side of the map again, going in favor of Abyss.
Yeah, 6-2-2. Of course, you have to say that Raid's having one of the best games of his life coming into this one. When it matters the most for Abyss to really get back into the OPL to secure their place once more, playing in the Pro League, but going over on the other side, you can see where the resources go. And it's not so much by choice. Regicide didn't choose to give ZZZ all of these kills, all of these gold. It's because he was sitting right next to a squishy on the side of Abyss that he managed to get the kills naturally by himself. The fact that it's only Riven with this advantage, and we all saw what Riven can do in the middle of a team fight just then when he got chased down by 5 members, it's not really the most optimal way to distribute your gold.
I mean, look at the item pickups. Raid, Blade of the Ruin King, Hurricane, actually the latest Hurricane for Phantom Dancer. You'd expect that to be because of ZZZ. QSS picked up as well, whereas for the side of Lucius, replaced the Hurricane for a Black Cleaver to Soda 2. 80 carries are well and truly online. No Artisancer being picked up by Rosie just yet, instead went for the Knight's Vow and Sightstone very early on, but you could expect one later on in the match.
Yeah, he doesn't even want one at this moment because his bot lane is just going so well ahead, and you also got to take a look at what it provides over against the side of Regicide. It just provides a whole lot of magic damage, which, yeah, if you take a look at the composition, could be lacking, but Pabu is already doing a whole lot of good work. It's very deceptive, but compared to his game number 2, his game number 3 has a whole lot more impact.
He's also well and truly online now. Double health item with some armor from Righteous Glory as well as Ninja Tabby, and he's got the components for his Gargoyle Stoneblade. Doesn't even upgrade it just yet. Those 2 resistance-based items will help his health stacking very well. And Righteous Glory just makes... It removes all the problems Cho'Gath has with initiating.
Yeah.
Gives him the mobility he needs.
Yep. You just get to run into the middle of your enemy team as they really desperately try to get away from this weird purple dog void creature. But that's really what Regicide have to do.
Suma gets knocked back by a pillar. Raid wants to continue hunting forward. ZZZ is split pushing against Pabu in the bottom lane.
What a surprise. That is his power, though. He needs to do it.
Lush does get caught out here. Arrow comes through, only lands on towards Rosie. Teleport's going to come in from Pabu first. Suma gets locked down by the Cataclysm. Good culling, went through the rest of the team. ZZZ will now jump in, but gets silenced instantly. Chen is the first casualty, and 5-member strong Abyss will charge towards the rest of Regicide. Baron is up and then looking to taking it.
And you can see the clear faults that came out from Regicide's calling of that last team fight because they all go towards it. However, Abyss managed to pick up the kill, and now the Baron started.
Human has teleported into the fight. 4 on 5. Yele is at half health. Pabu tries to peel off. Luch taking a lot of damage. ZZ goes on top of it. Baron's dead. Luch very low, but somehow still alive. Pops him into GA. Suma will get that kill. Kedu will be able to take down the AD carry with the help of his jungler. And ZZZ goes to town. 1 by 1, Abyss will fall. They get the Baron, but Regicide are on cleanup duty.
And it doesn't even matter if they get the Baron buff because they get all of their health taken down. They get all of their magic resist shredded, and Suman just comes in and cleans house.
Lucky for Seb, double blast cone available for him to get back to safety. Meanwhile, though, Rosie still running a marathon. Kedu wants to chase him down, can't get him with the volley. Even Yele trying to chase him. Just a cheeky little taunt as well. Still, Abyss, 4,000 gold up. They got the Baron, but Regicide won that fight.
Yeah, and they managed to get a little bit more for their efforts, get taken down that mid-outer turret. However, that is a very late mid-outer turret. It will add a little bit to their gold, but all in all, you have to say that Abyss still came out ahead because the Baron buff managed to stay on 2 of their members in the form of Seb and Rosie, and also simply the gold that they got from the Baron outweighs the gold that they lost from the kills.
But ZZ's gone for an interesting item build. Warden's Mail as well as Executioner's Call picked up on his Riffin right now. Just interesting.
Yeah, I mean...
Don't understand it.
Gotta be absolutely honest with you, Fish. I'm not the biggest connoisseur of ribbon builds in 7.16, so I can't tell you quite which way he's going. Obviously, the execution's going into a mortal reminder, but, you know...
Look, we didn't know what he was building last time he picked up the Warden's Mail. Eventually, he's going to sell it, we think. But let's see what he does.
Yeah, it doesn't give him any combat stats. Why would he want it? No idea.
Galio Stoneplay has been complete by Pabu, and Knight's Vow picked up by both Seb as well as Rosie. So Luch and Raid will have a Knight's Vow. Each locket is being built by the support.
That locket is going to come in handy should they get another team fight because a huge amount of damage was actually coming out from Suman. However, when we take a look at the last team fight, it was a little uneven and a little disrepresentative of AE simply because they had a huge amount of MR debuff from that Baron. Now they're sieging down the bot turret.
So the Warden's Mail kind of makes sense now due to the fact that everyone on Regicide does physical damage except for Pabu, and he's not building much penetration. Well, none at all, actually. And so just trying to survive through Seb, Raid, and Luch. Even Rosie coming in with quite a bit of physical damage on that Trundle. And Abyss continue to siege bottom lane inhibitor turret. With Baron buffed minions, they can slowly work their way in towards the base, but ZZZ is threatening. Still waiting for his Guardian Angel to come back up. That's halfway off cooldown.
Yep, and it's time for him to really put up or shut up because he has performed massively on this ribbon before. It's his main champion, his love and his pride. Now he needs to be able to prove that he can take it against Abyss. Can he take some squishies 1v1? Of course, but that's a Riven. Any Riven main should be able to do that. Now he needs to prove that he can actually team fight. And he's got the Wardens for it, but Chentron is caught.
Yeah, he's going to get taken out very low. Ultimate pop by the Alistar will live for a little bit longer, but nobody is here to save him. He's just running back towards the enemy base, trying to delay some time, run him away from his team. So a pick comes out from Abyss. Righteous Glory popped by Pabu, who's charging in.
And this is actually massive coming out for Abyss because while it's just the pick down onto the support, the side of Abyss didn't have to use any of their summoners, only one ultimate down from Rosie, so now they can siege very comfortably with their cooldowns.
Constellation Prize is casted and walks a big minion wave in towards inner turret. He's recalling and Riff walking back to try and defend this. Two range minions is all they have here. Big double knockout coming out from Pabu. Yele will knock him up in return, and the Baron buff minions come in. So this turret falls. Yele gets jumped on by Seb. Good use of the... I don't know what that's called. The little tunnels to get back to safety there.
Yeah,
Silma gets a big chomp coming out from Pabu, deterring him from going any further forward, and Regicide will lose their inhibitor turret as well as inhibitor.
Yeah, it kind of looked like Yili was just having a little bit of tunnel vision issues as he goes through that, but all in all, they failed to defend the inhibitor simply because Chentron was down, a whole lot of summoners up, as well as ultimates for Abyss. Regicide respected, but I don't really think that respect is the thing they need to take a look at, because at this moment in time, ZZZ is only going to get weaker. Rivens don't really scale up with time. Of course, she can buy a little bit of time with a Mortal Reminder simply because of the last switch to the passive, but realistically, you're not going to be able to do any more damage than you currently are, and if you don't take the fights now, they're only going to get harder.
Keter is still a full item behind Raid as well. He just picked up his IE, whereas Raid has gone for the Mercurial Scimitar, so double lifesteal item complete for the Callista. IE has been picked up by Lucho. He is also a full item ahead of the 80 carry from the side of Regicide. Sealman has his third item here. Rod of Ages, Zonius, and Lichbane complete with Sword Boots. This time around though, his Dark Seal is not stacked up that well.
He might be looking to sell it later as the game goes, but at the current moment, it's perfectly fine. From the only downside, as there's an Elixir of Iron. No, I nearly got baited into thinking that was potentially a Callista ultimate. Another thing that they could potentially do is deny away a whole lot of vision, because there's not actually any space in Regicide's backpack in order to pick up a whole lot of control wards. Now, they're playing this game virtually blind.
Cheeky Chen Silman flashes in. They're trying to lock down Raid. He's flashed into the pit. Luch and Raid left untouched, but there goes ZZZ in the backlines. He's already got one. Luch is trying to cull him to death, but eventually the River cooldowns come back up, jumping on top of the mid laner. GA will pop. Luch is somehow still alive, but look at how well Abyss are peeling for their mid laner. Eventually, Yele gets a kill. Rosie, Seb, and Pablo are all that are left. Kedu is still very healthy. He's trying to get into the fight. The pillar comes through. Seb is low. ZZZ wants some. Gets a big shield. Triple stun comes out as well. Pabu forced to flash out on top of that. And Abyss loses the team fight.
And ZZZ manages to make it out alive. He dies initially, but he has GA and now Pabu.
He's going to fall down here. And that team fight, ZZZ was waiting for his Guardian Angel to come back up. It comes back up, but he runs a clinic on how to play Riven.
That was nuts. Everybody on the side of Abyss was choosing a different target to hit, and they were dividing it between ZZZ, Sumin, and also Kedu. You know what the result of that is, Fish? You don't get any of them. You need to keep your eyes on one rabbit and chase it all the way down. Very unfortunate to see, but it's extremely fortunate if you're on the side of Regicide, because it buys you even more time.
Still a 3,000 gold lead for Abyss, but the later and later we get into this game, the more irrelevant that 3,000 gold lead is for the squad. That has allowed them to go back to base, get a couple of items for themselves. ZZZ does put his GA onto cooldown once again, which is unfortunate for the Riven. That's what he needs to continue team fighting the way he has.
Yeah, but he did. But he used it to its maximum efficiency. He jumped in, he managed to assassinate on the side of Abyss, and then he died for it, sure, but that baited a lot of the Abyss members to actually stand on top of his corpse, allowed Kedu to free fire, which as an Ashe is something that is not really allowed to do, and ZZZ is caught.
He is in trouble. No flash available for the Riven. Cataclysm comes in. There's a teleport coming in for Sumin as well, but ZZZ is going to die here. Luch gets that kill. Now Sumin's on the run away from Rosie. Big Pillar comes through. Ray tries to slow him down, but that's 60 seconds before the top lane of Regicide is back up.
Yeah, and that was really questionable because Sumin teleported in and he continued the teleport. Now he's stuck in a really sticky situation. Abyss are doing the Baron. Do they want to take it?
Nope, they're going to give it up, so Abyss get a free Baron once again. No control over these objectives for Regicide. Now they're 5,000 gold behind Abyss.
And that's the most questionable part, because you put your teleport on cooldown, on its maximum cooldown, because you actually follow through with it. You don't challenge the Baron, and now with one extra member, they are pushing down the top side. ZZZ, he's got 20 seconds before he comes back up.
This inhibitor is going to fall. Abyss will take it down nice and easy. March towards the base once again. Only mid lane inhibitor left standing for the Regicide squad. Abyss will back out, and that'll definitely be their next objective to look towards. ZZZ coming up in about 8 seconds. But not much he can do about his Guardian Angel so far.
Yeah, and Abyss, all they need to do is they need to go back to base, they need to reset, use the gold that they picked up, and they can go for a very swift victory at this moment. However, that gives Regicide a whole lot of time to set up their defenses. It is not only their last chance to put up a fight to save them from this game, it is their last chance to save them from going into the promotion and relegation tournament, because this is the fringe of it and they do not want to fall in.
The final stand's coming up soon. We've seen these fast few team fights. ZZ can take down Raid nice and easy despite Calista being so mobile. So Raid's gone back to base and picked up a GA for himself. Whereas it's for the side of Luch, he's been able to avoid ZZZ on the back end of these fights, live to distribute quite a bit of damage. He's going towards the Last Whisper as soon as he possibly can. Kedu has his own Last Whisper, a full item again behind Raid. In fact, Raid has completed all 6 of his items.
None of them are a Last Whisper though, so he won't be doing too much into the tank line, but I have a sneaky suspicion that he's not really looking towards killing Chen Chuan.
I mean, when ZZZ is the front line of Regicide, it's going to be difficult. Elder Dragon falls for Abyss as well, so 40% extra damage to structures at the moment for them, as well as 3 elementals stacking up the true damage from Elder. This is a difficult time for Regicide to fight. No Guardian Angel for ZZZ, and Elder Dragon and a Baron buff against them.
Yeah, this might be one of the toughest fights that we've seen in history, but teams have come up from first. That's not to say that my money is on Regicide. However, they need to put up a very valiant fight right now. Chen Chuan is looking for an engage.
They're going for it. Kedu steps out. They decide not to initiate onto the front line of Abyss. Pillar comes through. And this inhibitor should just fall for free. Regicide, let's see if they put up a defense here. They survived the first wave.
But there is a cannon that's very slowly chipping away, and they always need to be cognizant of that cannon.
Seb's going to take some damage here from Kedu. But you can already see Regicide, as soon as Abyss push in towards the base, they back out. They've already got super minions on the Nexus turret top side of the map. Regicide can't defend against that quite effectively. Pillar comes through, disengage once again.
Oh, and the turret.
Suman's going to have to back out. That turret's going to fall in Abyss. March more minions on towards the next. Might try and close out the game right here.
Yeah, this is a last stand. They have a turret. This is literally the best situation for Regicide to fight. They need to take it now.
But it's against Baron Buff and Elder Dragon. It connects. Luch gets locked down. There goes CCC. Mid laner is going to die.
Oh,
or is he? How the heck would Luch survive so long? Finally going to fall, but CCZ is dead as well. Kedu's on top of Raid. Look at Pabu. He doesn't give a crap about what's going on in this team fight. He's hitting the damn Nexus. The big, scary Cho'Gath is trying to finish the game all by himself.
He can't do it, Fish. He has Baron, but that's not going to be enough for the rest of his team.
Double kill is going to be picked up by Silman. Pabu's trying his damn hardest to take this one down. It's not going to happen. Regicide will win the battle. Abyss definitely fighting for the war here.
And they also lost their turret for it. So while they do come out victorious from this battle, it buys them a little bit more time. I feel as if I've said that about 5 times in this game so far. They lose what last structure they possibly had to fight around. I was instigating the fact that that turret was pretty much the best case scenario in order to come back, and they used it most effectively. However, now it almost looks like nothing is there to defend them.
Yep, Regicide need to pull this game to 80,000 gold. That's when they will have all their completed items on the 80 carry as well as their mid laner. You can see there they're still 3,000 gold behind both Raid as well as Luch. Jungle in Regicide's favor. Top lane slightly in ZZZ's favor. But it's really Luch and Raid that have been doing all the work. Somehow Luch got the couple more auto attacks off in that fight to take down ZZ. But his GA is now up. He can dive into the backlines repetitively. And GA for Raid was destroyed in that fight.
Yeah, that was always the biggest proponent. However, when you take a look at the rest of the map, with 2 inhibitors down, somebody always needs to be playing babysitter duty with the Nexus. Because no Nexus turrets available, that's got to be one of the toughest situations for Regicide to face. It doesn't necessarily mean that Regicide need to fight inside their base, but it means that they have to sack their whole jungle for it.
But they did fight against Baron buffed minions wailing away in the team fight. Super minions destroying the front line of Regicide, Baroned up Abyss, as well as Elder Dragon picked up, and the GA available for Raid. Now that all that is wiped off the map, Regicide might have a slightly better fight for themselves. The question is, can they keep the minions away from the Nexus while they try to fight Abyss, who are sieging mid lane turret, waiting patiently.
And that's the key word, Fish, turret. They can still technically fight under this turret with an extra amount of damage, but they need to call it now, because if they give this up, if they give the inhibitor up, there is literally nothing that they are fighting under.
Kedu also got the perfect arrow in that last team fight, nailed a Luch, who does not have the QSS for his squad. No Mikhail's coming out of Rosie either, so if he gets locked down by that, he's as good as dead, as ZZ showed in that fight. Teleport is available for both him and Suman as well.
The one upside to Luch getting so late into the game is the fact that he is always known to play towards the late game. This is his comfort zone. If ever there were a time for him to start showing up big for his team, it has to be now. And I'm talking about dodging a Kedu arrow, baiting the Kedu arrow, and then just taking the fight without that major initiate.
So they're at 74,000 gold. Remember, 80,000 is the target for them to get to all their completed items despite being behind. Abyss disappointed in the game. Raid's going back to base, probably going to sell his GA, I'd assume, and pick up another item for himself.
Naturally has to, because it is on cooldown. No use being in your inventory.
Just gets a red pod instead, so he's going to have triple lifesteal items. I was curious to see why he's going back to base. But Abyss even know that they can't push for too much right now, so they're going to wait things out. Baron buff comes out in 30 seconds. Elder Dragon on a much longer cooldown, so it will not respawn for quite some time. And
it kind of just looks like Abyss are biding their time, going for the Baron, not playing way too aggressive, playing where they need to. And the downside of playing towards that is the fact that you give up time on the top inhibitor. It has now respawned. However, they do still have the pressure down bot side.
ZZZ is dealing with those waves quite effectively, as you'd expect the Ribbon to do. Pabu slightly caught out. Forces the Righteous Glory. He gets hit by an arrow as well. He's at half health. Yele comes in. Churchred slams the ground. Doesn't get the knock-up he wanted. Suman does get chomped out by Pabu, but that's the big front line for Abyss. Now, ZZZ in the back lines. Exhausted. Still has GA. Will get popped. They take down the front line, but Luch is in trouble. Suman and Sonya's. Raid will get a kill on towards the support, and they pull out the Trundle back to safety.
And how does this keep happening, Fish? Every single time we see ZZZ come back to life with the GA, he just doesn't fight when it's down, and Abyss allow him to do so. They're actually going for the Baron.
There's no front line for Abyss. Let's see what Red Side decided to do. Did they peel back off? Here comes Silman teleporting into the fight. Abyss put up their last stand. Rage trying to kite this one out. He gets dumpstered by Silman over the wall onto Luch. Ripforks on his face for the double. Can he get the triple now? Seb's trying to run away from this one. Pillar comes out for Rosie, but look at the two solo laners chase them down. Seb's trying to run this one out. Very low in health. Silman's going to hit a chicken for God knows what, and Seb will be able to get back out. But look at this Baron. It's been started by Yale as well as Kedu.
And I don't think that Abyss can really challenge this. Seb is way too low. He needs to go back to base. He cannot smite steal this one unless he wants to die. And both inhibitors have respawned in the base.
Rosie's also going to fall down here, forced to flash over the wall. Silman doesn't care. Flash all you want. Yeah. Ultimate does care. Subjugate keeps Rosie alive.
Oh, okay. So that is the one upside from Abyss.
Oh,
the huge downside was that last fight that just happened, because pretty much what happened was they wanted to bait around the Baron. They wanted to bide their time, get a Baron, get a very clean finish. What it allows Regicide to do is not only get the GAs up from the Riven, but also the inhibitor up, so they don't need to worry about it. They go for the team fight. This is absolutely ridiculous, Fish. How many times have I said that this is the last stand for Regicide? They proved me wrong over and over and over again.
They want to stay in the OPL, and we already mentioned 80,000 gold is enough for them to pick up all 6 items. Kedu's done. He's got everything complete. Yep. Now it's just Silman looking for his Rabadon's death cap, you'd have to assume. ZZZ is done. Yele's got his last item as well. And now it's down to team fight. That's it. That's all it is.
And here is the scariest thing about that, Fish, because it's not even about the uneven team fights that Regicide have, but it's about the fact that, oh, here it is.
They're going for a fight. Pabu gets caught out again. Seb jumps into the back lines on top of ZZZ. Good chomp from Pabu. Big shields coming out of Locker. Both Luch and Raid left on top, but Seb dies first. Silman in trouble. He pops the Zonya. ZZZ goes back in for round 2, but Kedu now takes over the fight. Double kill for the Ash. Only the carries left and right for Abyss. Triple kill picked up by Kedu. Luch is the last man standing here. Raid will respawn from GA, but dies instantly. That's a quadra kill picks up by the Ash.
And that was the team fight power of Regicide. You could see it starting in slow motion, Fish, as Luch gets taken down at the end. Pretty much what happened was Pabu used his ultimate immediately onto ZZZ, chunking ZZZ down onto half health. Guess what? Nobody has any burst down for Kedu. That could well be game for Regicide.
Regicide coming back from the dead. They were at the brink of destruction so many times in this third and final game. Abyss dominated the early game, took control of the mid game, and they had the late game in their hands as well. Pabu was hitting the Nexus at some point. 1 second till Seb comes back up. That's not going to be enough. Regicide are on towards the Nexus. They're hammering away at it. Seb can't do enough, and they will qualify back into the OPL for the next split.
And that was their very last ditch effort to come into this game, Fish. They finally managed to get the victory after what seemed like last chance over and over and over again. Woo! I don't know if there was a counter in the back room, but I must have said it, I believe, 7 times, and every single time they managed to play up big, whether it would be the very last team fights, defending inhibitors, defending Nexus, and also contesting a Baron. Oh, what a journey.
And after game 1, I thought it was going to be a one-sided affair for Regicide. It looked so good in the team fighting team comp. Went to split pushing, didn't work game 2. Game 3, somehow they pulled it back.
Yeah, because you talk about how dominant it looked in game number 1. Coming into game number 3, Abyss were just styling all over them, left, right, and center, pushing into the base. Like you said, literally members hitting the Nexus, but they just didn't manage to finish the game, and Regicide hold on.
And it was an exciting game of League of Legends there. But with that now, Regicide will qualify back into the OPL, and Abyss now have to go through the tough task of avoiding relegation by going through the promotion tournament. Tomorrow, more games will kick off as Abyss Esports Club will take on Outlaws Gaming, and their sister team will take on the last place from the OPL of TM Gaming. Those matches will help them decide who goes into the final few games to qualify into the OPL.
But if we ever have to draw any sort of conclusion from what we saw today, Abyss look strong. Now, when you put them next to Outlaws, having dropped 1 game in the OCS, can they potentially take it on? I guess time will tell.
We'll find out tomorrow if they can take down Outlaws, but that's all from us here tonight. Thank you so much, guys, for watching. Thank you so much, Jimmy, for joining us here today, and thank you to our entire production crew. We'll see you guys tomorrow.